That's all right. I just
all right, welcome. I'll go ahead and call us to order here. I think there's just one additional member that that might come in, Makoto. I think is expected to join us here in a little bit. All right, first off, deep breaths, everybody. Let's, there's been, I think, a lot of talk and chatter about, what council's doing on Parks and Rec and the direction we're going. I just want to say, let's just, kind of shake off any preconceived notions, I think, that anyone in this room might have or negative feelings. I just want to start with, we're all here tonight because we love parks and recreation in the city of Sandy. We all strive to have that goal. And in fact, it's going to be the very first question that I go around this table and ask everybody. And I'm just looking for nothing more than a yes or no. We don't have to agree on the timeline of how we get there. We don't have to agree on the manner in which we get there. I just want to see if everyone in this room has the same goal, which is to eventually have a kick-ass aquatic parks and recreation right here in the city of Sandy. Yes or no? Yes. Do we all support that as an end game? Jeremy, do you?
Yeah, of course.
Jan? Lori?
Absolutely.
I absolutely do. Bethany? John? Don?
Yeah.
Yeah? Kathleen? I know you do. You've dedicated your life towards it.
What he said.
Susan?
In the city, yes.
Okay, that's fine. Carl?
Absolutely.
Michael?
Yes.
Sam?
Sure.
Sarah? Tyler?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
Jordan?
You betcha.
Jeff?
Absolutely.
Chief Roberts, do you want to have your police force doing all this? All right.
Wait, we got one more.
Brady's got to be an unbiased party here, right? So I just start to say that's where we want to go, okay? And we're the Sandy City Council. To Susan's point, yeah, first and foremost, we want to have awesome parks, trails, recreation, aquatics in the city of Sandy. There's two major things that I want to accomplish here tonight. One is for us to provide an update on what our council efforts have been and what kind of has brought us here today. Most importantly is our Parks Advisory Committee. We want to seek your input, recommendations on where we're at and what we should be doing. It hit me thinking about this meeting last night. Our city council lives in an echo chamber, right? We meet together all the time, we're conversing all the time, we're trying to plan the Parks and Rec, and a big problem when you get organizations like city councils that work so closely together is something called groupthink. And we may be victims of that. Our council may be victims of our own groupthink and living in our own echo chamber. And quite frankly, that's why we have a Parks and Rec Advisory Committee to help kick us in the butt a little bit when those things are happening and to tell us if we are getting off track. And so that's what this here today is all about, is for us to have a conversation as a community, as members of this community that loves Parks and Rec, and to discuss what is the best path forward for us for the city of Sandy. Okay? So, with that, I just wanted to start with kind of what brings us here today. I believe that we have a historic generational opportunity for us as the city. There's a number of things that are happening. One is with some of the younger families coming into town. We're in the top 5% in the state of Oregon for younger communities. Several years ago, as everyone in this room is pretty aware, we purchased the Sandy Community Campus. About 40 acres of property, as it's been pointed out before, it's not a true 40 acres, right? A lot of it's sloped and down hills and unusable, but we have a lot of acres worth of ball fields, existing infrastructure that could potentially be turned into a community center, and we have an aquatics facility that's part of that. Jordan has passed around or sent out polling survey that was done city made that purchase. And it shows about 51% support, which is not overwhelming support for that purchase, but was around the amount of support the council felt they needed at that time to make that purchase. The last time we all met, our city council was facing a number of huge budget issues and constraints. We were looking at nearly $1 million deficit in our police fund. We as a council knew that we had wastewater coming down the pipe, which I think a lot of you have probably noticed and seen the chatter about in the community over the last couple of weeks. The first step of that has now come to fruition. So we had to make a couple of tough decisions. One, as everybody's aware, we had to close the aquatic center about midway through last year. We were losing about $500,000 a year in operational expenses on that alone. Additionally, to fix the rest of that budget in the right size, we implemented a public safety fee. One of the options with the pool at that time was to do a fee under that utility bill for the pool. Reason we didn't go down that path, I think past councils may have looked at it a lot harder, but us knowing our wastewater situation that we had, we just did not view that as a viable opportunity or alternative. So what happened is, when we closed that pool, is there was a lot of debate in this community. We had a lot of people filling this council chamber, a lot of online conversations. We are hearing, I would pay more for the pool. I would pay more for increased parks and recreation. Two of the biggest supporters of where we're going now, me and Councilor Smallwood, were the ones that said, bullshit. We said, no way will this community support increased taxes for an aquatic center and Parks and Rec. And to prove our point, we decided to do a survey out to this community to get feedback. And we insisted it be a scientific survey, and we wanted to be on the committee that helped write the questions so that we could believe the poll results that would come back. And those poll results came back showing nearly 76% support for the aquatic center. Well over 60% support for Parks and Rec district and increased parks and recreation opportunities for our community. And we felt, holy smokes, those were quite the numbers. In addition to that, I'm going to pass around here to everybody. I'm going to start half here to my left. Take one. Actually, I'm going to leave one three and pass these around. So what this is these are historic election trends here in just Sandy. The two precincts that make up the city of Sandy is precincts 107 and 108. We'll start from the left and we'll go to the right. Mark Johnson's a Republican. Mark Reynolds was a Democrat. Mark Johnson won 62% to 38% here in the city of Sandy. Donald Trump is a Republican. Hillary Clinton's a Democrat. 59% to 41%. Bud Pierce is a Republican. Kate Brown's a Democrat, won handily in the state, as did Hillary Clinton. Bud Pierce, 59%. Kate Brown, 41%. Dennis Richardson, a Republican. Brad Avakian, a Democrat. 64% for Dennis Richardson. 36% for Brad Avakian. Measure 97, gross receipts tax, state of Oregon, on the ballot. Goes down in the city of Sandy, 68% to 32%. Measure 3-480, some of you may remember, this is the city of Sandy gas tax. 3 cents. Huh?
What year, which election are you saying?
Oh, shoot. So, the March, these are all 2016. Was the measure for the gas tax 2016 as well, for some of those that were here? Okay. I apologize, I didn't
So
include the
it's a
years.
mishmash of different.
In the past couple of years, yeah, right. This last, so in measure three, the Sandy gas tax went down in this community 71% to 29%. So here's the deal. There's been some big concerns on the timeline, and I want to talk about that tonight. Quite honestly, especially when guys like Don over here and with the experience that he has, says that we don't have the timeline to make this happen, that scares the living heck out of me. And I take that very seriously. And I wanna talk about that tonight. But what I wanted to create was a basis for what our council was thinking and what we're thinking. We're really wanting to drive home towards the 2020 election on a variety of reasons. And I'll give you a few of those real quickly. One is that we live in a very fiscally conservative community. We believe that we have the momentum with these survey results and the fact that we have 51% for support for the poll, and now we have 76% support of the poll, as showing that something pretty dynamic and important happened in between that time. We think it's that community members found they were in love with something. You never truly know how much you love something until it's taken away, and that happened, and that's front of mind for these folks right now. So we want to strike while that's hot. The other is we're going to heavily need the Clackamas County Commission and their support to pass this thing. In fact, when Jordan gives his report here in a little bit, he'll talk to you about that. We do not have time to collect signatures to put this on the ballot. We're going to have the commission support us in doing that to put it on the ballot. So their support's very important. Even if we do go this out longer and start collecting signatures, there's a few communities going down that path that are not hitting their earmarks that they need to collect those signatures. It's a big lift. It's about 5% of our community, I believe, that we have to get signatures from. It's a tedious process. That commission can change. Anyone who's watched the Clackamas County Commission in recent years knows the swings of that commission, right? We need their support. You never know what that commission's gonna look like in the future. Pending economic downturn. I did the polling, I talked about this a lot for Central Community College, Central Oregon Community College. It looked really good. That was in 2008. The economy dropped down. It got its butt kicked at the ballot box, right? We gotta be worried about an economic downturn. Oregon Trail School District. They're out into the field this week with the survey about a pending bond for them, right? So we may have competing bonds that we've got to talk to them about. But we've got to be thinking about their ask that they're going to be making to this community. And then the Oregon legislature, they're talking about cap and trade legislation. They're going to have more sessions. All government bodies, whether it be Metro, the state of Oregon, Clackamas County, or the city of Sandy, we're all looking for revenue right now. There's going to be fatigue out there in our community members for revenue. So that's kind of why council's driving home towards this 2020 deal in November. So with that, I just wanted to kind of provide the basis and the background. Council is not trying to screw up our parks and rec. In fact, we're trying to do quite the opposite. Are we going about this the wrong way? Well, let's talk about that, right? We want to have a group conversation with everybody here that loves parks and wants to see the best for this community and find out how we can get to that place. So the two items after Jordan speaks, since I want to talk about, have this kind of back and forth about our efforts, where we're going, what we're doing, are we on the right path? And then the second decision I see this body needing to make is we're in the middle of a master planning effort with our parks. How does that coincide with the efforts with the Parks and Rec districts? But I'm just going to close with this master plan that you're heavily working on is going to lead to some really incredible outcomes and some really neat feedback from the community. And that matched with our efforts, we're going to be able to pose a very significant question to the city of Sandy, possibly as early as November of 2020. And that is, do we want to reach our great potential as a community now? Or are we willing and do we want to wait 30 years for that to happen? What our voters tell us is up to them. And that's what democracy and community is all about. But as a council, we're ready to pose that question to our people here in Sandy. So, Jordan, take it away.
So my goal tonight is just to recap sort of what we presented last week on Wednesday in terms of the different alternatives and scenarios that we're talking about in terms of this special district, and then kind of cap it off with where our timeline is currently and where we're at with the process and what process we need to follow. I think the mayor alluded to our pivot away from a petition-led process to a county-initiated process where the county board would put the measure directly on the ballot before us. So I'll start with, sort of the big picture on what we're actually talking about here. And the meeting on Wednesday, a lot of the time was spent with the council talking about boundaries and talking about what this new special district would do. Of course, aquatics, as the mayor talked about, the fact that we closed the pool, but there is a strong community interest in reopening that pool. The city does not have the funding to operate the pool, and the pool also has some significant needs, which we've studied and had different cost estimates for the renovations or just the maintenance improvements that need to happen for the 50-year-old pool. And then adding to the aquatics would be running recreation programs for the city of Sandy plus the broader district. And so I do want to talk about some of the assumptions that we are making at this point, and we'll continue to refine as we get more information and we have conversations such as tonight and with the follow-up council meetings. But basically, given that we don't have any other facts to base it on at this point, we're using our existing budget. So we know that for the pool, we've operated the pool, or we operated the pool for almost a year, 9 months or so. So we can extrapolate and know what it would cost to run the current pool, but we also have to take into account what it would cost to operate an expanded pool that may have a warm water pool and maybe an outdoor element, remodeling, what does energy and all that stuff look like. For recreation programming, at this point we just assumed that we would expand upon our recreation programs. There's still some questions that we need to resolve in terms of where those programs would be operated out of. And especially if it's a broader district, would we expand into other facilities and lease space? But we would assume that if it is a district that has aquatics, recreation, and operating in a rec center, say at the community campus, that we would provide more or this district would provide more recreation programming at that facility. So it could be multi-purpose rooms where you can have classes and events, but also more even athletics, like gymnastics or something like that, if like say a gymnasium was included. And then finally adding parks, and there was another good conversation at the council level about, do you include Sandy's parks in this district? So it's a true parks and recreation district, and even a conversation about what parks should be included. Should all parks be included, or should we carve off a couple more ceremonial like parcels, like, or even feature parks like Mining Park, and we're making an assumption that we'll transfer all the parks except for, I think, the house at Bornstead, because it's a moneymaker for us at this point. But even that is still a question of whether the district could take that as their base of operations, maybe run programming out there as like a mini community center at Bornstead Park. So I do want to mention, I should talk about this. When we're talking about a special district, we're talking about forming a new local government under state statute ORS 198, and this would then be Parks and Recreation District under ORS 266. So this district would be a new government with its own boundary, with its own governing body, probably 5 individuals that would be elected by zone. So maybe 2 representatives from the city of Sandy boundary, and then a couple from the broader area, maybe 1 from Eagle Creek or up in Cherryville or Furwood. So we'd have to draw zones for where people would be elected from, but part of the task would be the community to find individuals to run for that new board and make sure that they file for the county by, I think, August is the deadline.
Well, don't glaze over that. We'll need a few folks to run if
That's
you
right.
decide to. All right.
And so, yeah, this is a new government that would have its own new tax rate, its permanent tax rate to support its operations, plus the ability to go out and ask voters to support, capital construction with bonds and things like that. And there's opportunities too to talk about, would this district contract with the city for some services, or have IGAs for using some of our facilities, or even administrative functions. We have a base of operations at our public works yard, and it sort of makes sense that maybe we don't duplicate having multiple yards with equipment and things like that, but those are things that we need to work out. So again, there's a big asterisk there that this is still subject to change as these assumptions kind of move around, and we make these decisions on what the district would own and operate, you know, what kind of rec center it might be and who operates that facility, such as renovating the Cedar Ridge Middle School. But we came up with the costs for the cost estimates for these different type of services and worked through with the council on you know, what those bottom line numbers look like. If you were to extrapolate the first year budget, where maybe you're ramping up, you're providing more programming, the facilities might still be under construction, so you're not quite, you know, running a full rec center. Maybe the pool isn't, you know, open at full capacity yet. Maybe they're operating at its current level of operations. So you do a 1, 2, 3 year budget, and by the third year, if you include aquatics, some administrative, you know, functions, recreation, rec center, and parks, it's about a $2.6 million operation. And how do you get funding for that? Well, it's a combination of, well, they'll have program revenues, but it's taxes, property taxes. And so next we need to figure out what those boundaries would be so we can come up with the assessed value to calculate what the tax rate would be to support those services. So the council had a great discussion at both the goal setting and then at this work session on, you know, what are the logical boundaries for a special district that would do parks and recreation, taking into account that there's some other proposals out there in Welch's. In the Welch's Elementary's territory, there's a proposal for a parks district out there. And then also considering other areas like Eagle Creek, and maybe we had a conversation about Estacada being involved or not. But the boundaries that sort of make sense to the council is to have it mimic our county library district that extends to past into the Welch's school zone. So we would draw the line at the Welch's school zone boundary, and then on the west side draw the line at Metro, accounting that the places in Metro or in Boring, there's a large portion of Boring that is in Metro that obviously will have other tax measures on the ballot, and they pay a little more taxes out there. So council felt that it was probably prudent to maybe carve off that territory.
So really where we are going on this is when you think about going up towards the Welch's area, you've got a distinct community there who are in the middle of their own effort. And so we thought for a variety of reasons it made sense not to intrude on that effort, to draw our line in a manner that makes it very clear as to what they're doing versus what we're doing. And there was just a lot of reasons to draw it there. Going the other way to the point that Jordan just made is at that metro boundary, we found that to be particularly important as a result of some of the parks measures, parks and open spaces that the metro just passed in this last election cycle. Just previous to that, they passed a housing bond that went through, and then now they're looking at a transportation one. And knowing the dynamics that we just went through for Sandy, Boring's actually just that much more to the right, that it would make sense that we may have some taxing fatigue going on in the metro part of Boring, so to draw it at that metro boundary to give us the best opportunity to win with members of that community that do use our services.
So I just made a purple line on this map. We need to still make the maps for the proposed boundaries, but this purple line is essentially where that Welch's school zone territory ends. So the east boundary would be here, and then follow this purple line is our county library district. The purple area is still a question for the county or for the council, is whether Eagle Creek should be proposed as a territory to bring into this district. And then also some areas up here too. So this boundary with the Welch's school, I think, extends just north, and so you can bring in territory up here to expand the proposed size of the district. But this is sort of our base, is the library district, and this is the metro boundary out here. So you don't include this area of Boring into the district. So that's actually about, I think it's a couple $1 billion of assessed value for that territory. and, you know, we'll get more precise numbers when we run the maps and get the data. So we do this exercise of we look at what it costs to run a Parks and Recreation district or just an aquatics district, and knowing what the AV is, you can back into a tax rate that would be needed to support those services. So I was talking about example 3 and example 4 as sort of the scenarios that we're starting with. Those are, you know, we just calculated based on 2 million or 2 billion and 2.5 billion. So for just the pool only, to run a pool by the, you know, the 3rd year would be 58 cents. And the reason for the pool that there's a difference between year 1 and year 3 is we have to make the assumption that the district will need to bond and have debt financing in order to construct improvements. The city and the Urban Renewal Agency can contribute funding and maybe loan money to the district, but the district will either need to repay the city a large portion, or go out and get their own debt in order to make those improvements to the pool. So that would be built into their budget, just annual debt service for, you know, 20, maybe 30 years in order to pay for those improvements. So you see at the bottom, by the time we get to aquatics, recreation, a rec center, and parks, and again, this is, I just keep repeating myself, these are based on just some preliminary assumptions using our budget and our own sort of you know, knowledge on operations. You can get up to $1.25 for a district that corresponds with our library district, our current library district. So you're probably wondering, what does that mean to me? You know, so if you have the average assessed value home in Sandy, so single family home is about $210,000. That probably means your market value is, you know, closer to 400,000 or more, and so your taxes on, you know, tax rate of 1.2 or $1.20 would be $240 per year for a Parks and Recreation district. If it was, you know, closer to what the pool, just the pool, would be more like $100. And then there's different, you know, tax rates there to see if you came up with something that was somewhere in the middle of those two proposals, what it might be. Everybody knows how assessed values and taxes work, right? So I don't have to go too far into that.
That to say though, I mean, everybody, don't do it right now, 'cause we need everybody's attention. But you will be a little, when you have a chance, look up your address on Zillow and then go down to what the assessed value is. You know, I think some people will be a little surprised at how low the assessed value is on their home, and some people may be a little surprised at how high the assessed value is. But it doesn't necessarily equate to what might be at the top of your mind. But
Yeah.
Don't just look up there and think about what you would want to sell your house for tomorrow. That's the market assessment of your home.
Yeah. So market values go up with the market, right? So we've been in a pretty hot market housing wise, and so you know, the value of a home has been going up, but assessed values per state law can only go up by 3% unless you make improvements like, you know, make a large addition or remodel or something like that, where the assessor comes out and makes a reassessment. So you know, if your home is, older homes definitely have a lower assessed value than newer homes, because when a new home is built, they take the countywide average and apply that as your assessed value. So there's a more detailed timeline, but this is just high level stuff of where we're at and how much work we have to do here in just the next couple months. So here in the month of February, our major task is to come up with some concrete proposals, some alternatives for the council to consider, going out and asking voters via poll level support. So we're looking at a 10 to 12 minute telephone poll that we would be doing in March. In order to get to that point, we need to sort of finalize the boundary, the district services, and the tax rate in order to go out and ask that question. And we've even talked about maybe testing 2 different questions, a lower tax rate and a higher tax rate, to see what would have more support in order to keep moving forward in this process. In April, the council would then get the results of that poll, and the community can see that, and then we would have, I think, a little opportunity there in April to also have some public hearings and outreach and maybe open houses talking more about this district proposal, what it means, and what it provide. And as the Mayor talked about, we are going through this process now, assuming that we need to get the county's permission, or the county needs to put it on the ballot themselves, a county-initiated process as opposed to a petition process. Our research with the petition process is that you need several months, if not a year, to get the signatures that we would need. The city of Wilsonville has a petition currently for a charter amendment that's been going on for 6 months, gathering signatures. There's one in Lake Oswego that's been at month 3 for another different charter amendment. Both those have roughly, probably a little bit more registered voters than we would be looking at, but you need 15% of registered voters within the district to sign a petition. And out here in Sandy, I think it would be difficult to gather that in a timely manner unless you're doing direct mailing. And even then, you just don't have enough time to gather that many signatures. What's that?
How many people is that?
The Oregon Trail School District was 23,000. Sandy is 7,600 registered voters. So we would be looking at, you know, a smaller district than the Oregon Trail School District now, but it also puts a crunch on the timeline because the county also has to verify signatures if it's less than 5,000 signatures. So we would have to meet a deadline of like April 24th. And I say we, it's not a we, the city can't do the petition gathering, so it would be up to volunteers to be doing all that work too. So it's impossible. So there is and districts have been formed this way to go to the county, you know, with your case, and we have surveys, we'll have polling data, we'll have, you know, the economics, the feasibility of it, and show them, you know, what we would like them to do, and they put it on the ballot directly. And there's some deadlines associated with those things too, but the next steps in that process would be to get on the council or the county commission's docket for a work session with them to explain this process that we're going through and why we're doing it, and then continue our work with the polling and coming up with the proposal, and then presenting that to the county so that they can ultimately do the intent to put the measure on the ballot. And then, you know, there's other background work that needs to be done with the candidates filing and that sort of thing with the county too. So that's the process. I'm sure you have lots of questions. Tanya is here, Sarah, Tyler, myself, we can all help answer questions about the work that's gone into it and where we're at, and anything else that's on your mind. Thanks for being here tonight.
All right, so that's kind of the work that's been done, that's where we're at. We've had, as you can see, some conversations about budget, about rate, about what should all be included into the district. As Jordan talked about, our next move after, you know, depending on outcomes out of this meeting is to do a survey, phone survey, scientific survey, where we would put a couple of different options in front of our Sandy residents or people who would be residing within those district boundaries, to see, you know, it's kind of a what do you want for how much question, and to provide a couple options and to get some direction on that. With that, as our Sandy City Council, we lost our marbles here. Are we going in the right direction? Concerns? Let's talk about it.
One thing that wasn't mentioned was that we were hoping to keep the community campus building separately.
Yeah, so, and that's another idea that we've got to flesh out, but part of the Sandy Community Campus is, it's called the Bunker Building. What it is it's a newer addition that happened to the Cedar Ridge Middle School, but is out of all the assets that we got there in addition to the pool is kind of the one that's we can work with. The rest of it, we've been told by our building engineers, are pretty much demo ready. And what it is, when you're down there by the football field and you look up, it kind of, we call it the bunker building because it looks like a bunker. It's built out of stone and I don't know, but concrete. But there's, how much square footage do we think we have in there?
Like 20,000?
It's about 20,000 feet worth of square footage. We believe that it could, if we added some Sandy style elements and stuff, it could just become a beautiful facility with some community meeting spaces, classes, you know, be a rec center. One of the ideas we're throwing around is, using some of our urban renewal capacity to, turn that into a, true community center that we would donate towards this effort to be part of the Sandy community campus when and if this district effort is successful.
So then the district would be responsible for running the program.
All right, what do we think? I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you think?
What is the Welch's, what does their proposed district look like? Are we encroaching on their proposed district at all?
So, it gives me an opportunity to update a little bit. So, there's, in Hoodland, there's an effort of community members that have been working for about 2 years. They have a park that the county has donated to them that they then want to do improvements onto, and then they also have some ongoing maintenance once that park is created that they'll have. So they're looking at a Parks and Rec district to do this. They were concerned, there were some concerns about our boundaries overlapping with theirs and adding confusion. An individual by the name of R.C. Slater had written a piece that ended up in the Mountain Times. She also put it into was gonna go into the Sandy Post. I was able to have a conversation with her yesterday, and where we talked about, you know, our efforts is to avoid that confusion, is to avoid the boundary overlap. And in fact, I just think if this thing passed and theirs passed, it would be regionally significant. It would be good for both. And she pulled back that editorial as a result of that. And basically the conversation was, this is such a heavy lift. If this is gonna happen, we need everything to go right. And right out of the bat, first step out of the gate, this is going wrong. Please don't do this to me. And she agreed not to.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at on that.
So where do they plan on drawing the line in their boundary?
You might have a better idea for
Yeah.
me than that, but
Yeah, it's, so it's
There's no
basically their
overlap.
right now, as I understand, their boundary is what the Welch's school boundary is, and there's some legacy to that, boundary, but it essentially goes from, Alder Creek, that little kind of area, all the way up to government campus.
So there's no overlap?
No, no. We,
We
council put the
override
line
today.
right at
Yeah,
right
yeah.
at that line.
I guess my biggest concern is taking this on when there's other fires to put out in the Sandy cases. I don't know where this falls in line with the priorities. But I know with the growth of Sandy and the UGB, there's some unfinished business that needs to be addressed, in order for the city to avoid further issues. That's one of my concerns.
anybody else? I want to just put you on the spot.
Yeah, that's fine.
Michael?
I was at the meeting, or one of the meetings, where this place was filled with folks who were concerned about the pool and who didn't want it closed. So, given that, I kind of identify with your desire to move quickly on this. I think it also makes sense politically, if you're going to put something before the voters, to do it at a general election when you have a big turnout. My political understanding is that when you have a special election with a very small turnout, the no voters tend to be the ones who come out. And so if you want a good shot at getting this passed, I think it pays to do it this November. And if you didn't do it this November, but you agreed that you wanted it, you don't want to wait another 4 years for the next presidential election for that. Now, I've served on the Parks Board for a couple of years, all of that time with Kathleen, a couple of months with Dawn, and I've learned to respect their knowledge and experience. And I know that they have voiced concerns about doing this quickly. I don't have enough experience to agree with them or not, but I would say you need to take what they say seriously because they're making real objections and deal with them,
Yeah.
rather than just, that's not how we wanna go, we're going this way, we don't care what you say. So I think you're doing that, you invited us here, so, that's my initial 2 cents.
Appreciate that, thank you. You want, yes, Carl?
Yeah, maybe I can add something what Mike's talked about. I don't know why, maybe it's because I'm an old guy, but,
Not older than me.
well, the reason why I said that is because I've kind of stayed in relationship with what used to be the Friends of the Sandy Pool. And they're fairly old. Quite a number of them are within this district that we've been discussing, that Jordan described. And, I have to say, they were one of the ones that were a lot of that group that you both referred to that were here, very concerned that we would ever close the pool down, let alone close it down for a short period of time. A lot of them had the impression that we were gonna close it down for a year and then rethink it, put it up when the budget was ready and all that. And now we're talking about almost 2 years, a year and 3/4 anyway. I hear a lot of concerns that now we're talking about the second summer of time when they feel like that's the time when most of the really productive, economically beneficial, attendance to a pool would be the best. And so even if we get it done in November now, we're starting to hear maybe it's gonna be probably in the following summer, which gives us 2 summers and a couple winters without having the pool open. And there's a lot of concern about that. And as we move through this time, I think there will be a place with a curve where instead of going up about being very supportive of getting this on the budget and on the election, it will start coming down and there'll be the negative side of things, more of, well, you guys have waited so long, we don't trust you anymore. Those kind of statements have been bandied about in that group. And admittedly, it's not the hugest group in the city, but it's somewhere between 50 and 75 people that have a fairly loud voice. Could very well express that. Good experience, bad experience, depending on where we stand, I think. And for me, it was one of the reasons why I pushed as hard as anybody in council to get it going this November, rather than waiting for following year, an off-season, that kind of thing. So, to me, that's one of the reasons why that meeting we had that Mike talked about, where everybody came in here, was very advocated for keeping the pool going, very disappointed that we had to close it down. Their energy is coming back and saying, wow, we wanna get this forward, so we'll push for it to go forward. Waiting past that into 2021, I have a lot of fear that that positive energy will turn into some kind of negative, become an uphill fight instead of a downhill fight, and moving forward on a yes vote.
Susan?
Would you like
Or
to
Dawn?
go
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'd like to hear what you have to say.
Okay. Kathleen?
Sure, I'll go ahead. When I first saw the initial results, I was very heartened by it, excited, still is. I enjoyed that very much. To hear that, to see it, to know that you guys are very supportive of it. I think that's a wonderful thing. Sorry, I have been sicker than a dog the last 2 weeks, so dealing with it. The other thing I was excited about was I think it was maybe a number of months ago I met with you two. One of the things we talked about was we need to do professional survey work. Lay the groundwork, figure out the most basic of the basics. And the survey doesn't stop at one. You have to then go back out and test your hypothesis. Start putting together some numbers and start doing those things. And so I'm pretty excited that you guys are ready to move forward with an additional survey to do just that. And I really like what I hear as far as testing a couple of limits on it. I know when we did ours initially in North Clackamas, we did the same kind of thing. The first one was exciting. We looked at the broader community similar to what you did. The next one was where we started dialing it down a little bit, saying, you know, if you knew that you were gonna receive these services, would you be willing to tax yourself this dollar amount? And this is what this dollar amount means. And then, you know, yes or no, and then a couple push questions with that, and then we would come back and say, however, if you knew you would receive these services and this was the dollar amount, you know, would you do it? We started if I remember correctly, we started at the bigger dollar amount, and kind of retreated back, trying to find that, you know, that drop-off point. Was there a drop-off point? And in the end, we, you know, kind of had a sense of what people would support. There's a big difference between saying, yes, conceptually I will support my taxes going up for this, and yes, now that I see what it's gonna go up, I still support it. So that's, you know, you may learn some not so pleasant surprises at the next one, but what I like about it is that you're willing to do it professionally and do it at the next level. When I was involved, we spent a couple of years, not just doing that, but moving forward, developing all the plans so that people knew exactly when they came to election day, exactly what they were or weren't getting. Now, our district was considerably larger. It was about 100,000 people at that point in time. It consisted of a community that was, well, Sandy is 10,000, plus or minus?
About 11, 12.
Okay, well,
Plus or minus.
Milwaukee was about 20,000 at that point in time, 19,000, I think, at that point in time. But when you took that and spread it out over 5 neighborhoods, you know, averaging that, that's kind of where you ended up with, was about 5 communities of 20,000 people. Each one of those communities, we wanted to provide that master plan for, so they could see what they were getting. So my point is, it was a much more complicated process that we needed to deal with. With that, yeah, you could speed it up quite a bit from there. The concern I have also, though, is we had a lot of staff resources to us. And I've been a staff guy for way longer than I want to admit. It's pushing 4 decades now. So I've been around long enough to know that it's those guys who'll get it done, not you guys. You guys will nod your heads, and you guys will go talk to the Rotary, and you guys will go talk to these, and you guys will sell it. You won't have a single product to sell unless those 2 people right there can write you a plan and develop all the information and put it all together for you. So when you're saying, yeah, I want to get this done, I'm sure we can do this, I'm sure we can do this, be aware, you're not expressing self-confidence, you're expressing their confidence. And if they don't have any reluctance to it, well, then that's great. If they do have reluctance to it, well, then you need to really kind of focus that in, because and maybe I'm missing something here. I've only lived here for a year. I haven't seen a whole lot of staff depth, you know, within Sandy. You have great employees working for you. You don't have a lot of employees working for you. And there is a lot of technical things that are going to have to go into this. You assume, kind of in a back of napkin kind of calculations, that you can do all these things, put all this stuff together, but you need to test all those assumptions going forward. And they're the ones that are going to have to do it. You're going to have a number of meetings put up. We did have the county put up, I was thinking back to that, and some of the things that Jordan, you know, was talking about kind of tickled the old memory of back then. The county did sponsor the ballot for us. They did put it on. We didn't have to do it. The petition drive. We were scared about that too at the time, if I recall right. Oh my God. And you really, it is just mind-boggling to have to kind of wrap your head around that one. And they ended up doing it. Of course, that was a service district as opposed to a special district. The other, you know, some of the other questions that come up is how do you treat your own parks, you know, one way or another. I remember Milwaukee was the only incorporated part of that 100,000 people, it's just the 20,000. I think we had 80 acres of parkland, dedicated parkland within that. We developed an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Milwaukee and the proposed park district and the county as the governing board for that spelled out the rights and responsibilities. The city maintained its ownership of all the parklands and developed individual site master plans. many of those parks as they could possibly do. And then individual overall master plan, just like what we're developing now on behalf of Sandy. And that became the document that was the basis. The city never gave up ownership. The park district assumed responsibility for managing those properties. And if they wanted to do any kind of major improvements to it, there was a definition of what that was, they would have to come back and get city council's approval on those things. So the Milwaukee City Council never gave up its ownership on any of those. There were times where the park district did buy land within the city limits. That was owned and retained by the park district, not by the city. But for the city ones, historically, they still own the property. They didn't give that up. So I think that, you know, I guess to summarize where I'm at with it, I would be very concerned if I were sitting over in Jordan's seat right now, to be able to say, yeah, we can get all this stuff done. I'd be excited as hell to give it a try. And I'm sure Jordan is jumping out of his chair just wanting to give it a try over there. You know, Tanya's kind of holding him down right now. But I just want you aware that my biggest concern is your timeline is incredibly aggressive. Just getting on the Clackamas County agenda, it's gonna be way more than just walking in and saying, pretty please. You know, they wanna know that it's viable. And saying, honest, it's viable is not gonna suffice for them. So, you know, that's a big lift on those folks over there. I'll just stop at that point.
Would you mind speaking to the concern that a lot of us share about waiting, like doing it in this giant presidential election versus waiting for the election or a random November? Can you speak to that for us a little bit? And when was yours placed on?
It was a November election. It was the same day that Measure 47 passed, the property tax limitations passed by the absolute exact same percentages. We were shocked because Milwaukee had a history of voting everything down. The Oakville neighborhood had a history of voting things down. The only one that was seen as a little bit more progressive was the Sunnyside neighborhood. Everything east of 205 and west of the UBG, the rural end, was the hope that would go to carry it. It actually ended up passing within all 5 neighborhoods of the other area. The other thing that really helped us too was having a strong senior vote and working with Milwaukee Center going out and promoting out through that way. But that's, you know, kind of another issue there. My feeling was, you know, the excitement of hey, let's do this is great. Hey, let's get this all done. You know, you have certain benchmarks you have to hit, and probably the biggest one is getting it on the ballot and you're ready to go. You're looking at May, right? Get it on the, yeah. So that's my biggest hit is can you actually accomplish that and get it going? And then once that's done, once you get that all going, then you have another issue, which is the campaign process, which you don't need to talk about. That's not for. So yeah, my concern is your short term.
Let me ask a question there. You say Milwaukee was your only city, but was Happy Valley
No.
considered a neighborhood or
No,
didn't have?
Happy Valley wasn't involved at all. We went to Happy Valley, we surveyed Happy Valley. The Happy Valley residents were supportive of it. We surveyed Gladstone, they were supportive of it. We surveyed Westland, Oregon City. They were kind of neutral on it. In the end, Happy Valley said, no, we don't want to participate. They chose not to participate. And I know that there's a lot of history that you read in the newspaper, or maybe you talk to some of the Happy Valley councilors. I can assure you there's more than one side to that story. Yeah, they did not want to be a part of it initially. They came in later on.
They did come in later.
Yeah, decided that they wanted more local control than what they were having, and decided to go back out.
Let me ask this, with the concern being the timeline to May, and then, you know, and then of course after that, we're campaign, whatever. What's the true downside of striving and sprinting towards May and So, where's the problem at trying to hit that deadline to qualify and then finding out that we don't?
I think the single biggest problem we have, again, is what are you giving up in your staff time to do it? Is this the only thing that those two people are gonna work on between now and May? Anything else going on, Jordan? Anya?
I don't think so.
Well,
Anything?
but council directs priorities of the city, though.
Right, but there's still day-to-day operations, there's still employees, there's still issues that have to be
Yeah,
dealt with.
absolutely.
There's still bad guys doing bad things and good guys doing good things. There's still the regular day-to-day business of everything needs to get done. As long as you're confident and are willing to give them enough leash, or rope, depending on how you look at it, then, you know, great, go for it. But realize, everything comes with a trade-off, and everything has unintended consequences.
So, Don, a question. What do you think was some of the key successes that got you to a positive vote in that process of getting out to the public and stuff? Was it, you mentioned the senior vote was a really.
Senior vote was huge. The other big piece of it is like this conversation, it was built around a flag. At the time, there was the only existing public pool within the North Clackamas Park and Rec District was a little tiny outdoor pool at Milwaukee Junior High School. And it was a WPA project, at least like I said. It didn't have any bathrooms associated with it, there were 4 potties. Before you could go in, you had to take a cleansing shower, which consisted of a garden hose and a spray, and you walked underneath it as you went in. And I am not making that up. And that was the aquatic facility in the entire North Clackamas Park and Rec District. We had heard a lot of people wanting aquatic facility. We spent a lot of time investigating those aquatic facilities. We heard, well, I don't know how many groups of swimmers that if we only had a 50-meter pool, oh, life would be so grand with that. We could do all these great things. And we started, 50 meters, okay, well, that sounds really cool and sexy. Well,
Yeah, well.
you know, they start putting all the pencils to it. Again, that's a staff function, so I'm sure they can tell you like what it costs, and fine, you can. You know, suddenly you discover that, well, you 50 meters don't even come close to penciling out. In fact, the standard flat water pool is a 25-yard pool, not a 50-meter pool. American short course, not the long course, Olympic course. And so that's what all the high schools compete with, colleges compete with for that matter. They no longer have diving teams, they don't need diving wells, so we, nixed all those things that some of, our really expensive water became way less expensive. But the standard for recovery rate on a flat water pool indoors is about 40%. So when you're taking a look at, and that's a national standard, so when you're taking a look at all the different, flat water pools out there, and say, hey, this, which is yours over here, you can assume you're gonna, once you get it up and running with modern equipment, you're gonna expect a return about 40% on the dollar. So, kind of build that into your budget right away. I, did a little bit of testing with some of this. I sat down with, I'm the Park and Rec director in Oregon City. They kind of do some consulting side gigs, kind of things on the side. And that's run that now. I've been there since November. I'll be there through May this year. And sat down with Rochelle Parsh, who I'm sure Tanya's familiar with. She's been running our pool, which has about a 20,000 square foot community facility attached to it. Sounds familiar to me. And we're recovering, right around 40%. And there was an older pool that undergone a lot of renovations, about a couple million, I believe, to get it up and running. It was at the exact same point, was do we continue it or just shut it down? And they decided to continue it, and they were able to get this going. And if anybody wants to come and take a look at it, I'd be more than happy to set up tours and take people around and look at different stuff. But in the end, what we decided when we were doing our budget at North Clackamas was we wanted to have the highest recovery rate possible. And that's why we developed the aquatic park where we did. Yeah, it does have some deep water to it, because people just flat out wanted it. It does have a 25-meter pool, 25-yard pool inside of it. Just none of the swim teams in the area had any place to go, so we felt an obligation. But we did it as shallow as we could do it, so that they flip turns within it. And then, of course, it has the surprisingly has really low numbers of gallons in it. I don't remember the exact values off the top of my head right now, but overall, the operations were designed to recover 80%, not 40%. And we were successful. We recovered 100% for 3 years. And after 3 years, things get a little bit older.
Yep.
The excitement starts wearing off a little bit, and now we're down around that. I believe they're down around that 80% recovery rate is what they expected.
You all put up some numbers up there about costs and things like that.
Mhm.
Maybe they could flip back a
Sure.
little bit.
One of these or
Say,
the tax rate ones?
yeah, the cost for operating the pool, and all, is that, you said with improvements, when you did the survey, there was, do you want a splash pad, a wave pool thing, a lazy river, all that stuff? And is that what you're talking about with that budget that you put up there?
Yeah.
Your 3 is with a lazy river and so it's a
No,
brand new.
not all that. I
No.
mean, it was a
That's
very
what I'm asking.
minimal amount of programming. I mean, it was some adjustments, but.
So it's basically the same lipstick pig.
No. The first year is basically based on what it currently is.
Which is?
That 1 year of operations.
Okay, so
This-
what I'm trying to ask about is, we have the current pool.
Yes.
We put a little lipstick on it, painted it and stuff like that last time.
Yes.
But we still got this old crappy pool that we
Correct.
all agreed was, you know, okay, and so when we're talking about doing a pool district or whatever, are we talking about all this cool and groovy things you mentioned with these costs that you put up? Are you talking about a new pool with waves and slides and
No.
all that stuff?
It's just flat.
No.
It's just, the existing pool?
Yeah,
with maybe
year-
some energy efficiencies or something that
Year
people don't
two,
notice?
year 1 was what we did the current year of operations. Year 2 was adding the modifications to the mechanical systems and possibly increasing our programming if we were to add a warm water pool, for instance, because that's where we could do the most programming. And year 3 was basically, adding a little more programming to possibly increase during the daytime hours. The second year was a lot of, what council had asked me to do prior, which was, okay, well, what if we were to open up more hours? What if we were to really expand our programming? What could we do? So year 2 is a combination of increasing our programming efforts, but also having those modifications already done.
So, given that, from what I'm hearing, is that basically, what we're asking in these numbers aren't really connected to the survey where we asked people, would you support, the wave pool, the splash pad, the lazy river and all that? That's what people got excited about. And so that's where, when we talk about, what are we voting for, what's included, mechanical, people don't really get too excited about that. And so that's where trying to figure out what it is we're including and how much it's gonna cost, and what people, and understanding all those things, and then asking, what would people support, is really important. It's the first step. And I feel like instead we've kind of gone to the very end of the process and said, well, how big of a pill can we get these people to swallow? How many people can we give the pill to, and how big of a pill can we get them to swallow?
Hold on, Kathleen, real quick though.
Okay.
We're not at the, I would object that we're not at the end of the process yet.
Okay, I'm just talking about how this feels to me. I totally understand that it totally looks totally different from you.
But you gotta first, please listen to what I said, because you didn't
Okay.
respond to what I said, okay? I just said is that we're not at the end of the process yet. So you're saying, we gotta figure out what the pool's gonna look like and what we're gonna tell voters. And I'm saying,
You're right.
we need to propose that, but we're not it's not like we're smack dab at the end of our timeline.
Let me clarify, you made a very good point. Normally, in this process, and I'm gonna rely on him, because I don't know, I probably know less than you all about parks districts and stuff. I know about process and all that, but I rely on Don for some of this stuff. My understanding is, you do kind of these master planning things to try to figure out, what does the public want, how much does it cost, what will they support? You go through all that real collaborative, engaging process, and then you kind of get to the end and go, okay, how much can we pay for, where are we gonna get the money to And that's when you start going with these other things. And so it appears like with this process, it's a little, we haven't kind of gone through that, we're kind of instead kind of jumping in. And I get all the reasons for it and the pool and all that, although I can bring up the fact that, a year and a half to 2 years ago, there was a survey done for the pool, and people supported having a utility fee of, I think the sweet spot was like $5 to support the pool, and that would brought in most of the costs of operating the pool. $5 equals $60 a month. That's for your pool, your costs. I think your lowest one was about $29,000, which was $60 to $100 a year, I think is what, And so what, so yeah, $30 at 200,000 is 30 cents at 200,000 is $60. So that's equitable to the $5 a month. And instead, we didn't take that and use it with the wastewater, we gave it over to the police department. So that was, that was without a survey and without a vote, we all decided to do that and close the pool instead. So now we're here trying to figure out how to evidently operate the existing pool we have. And the first thing I'm gonna ask is, gosh, if I wanna support a pool, and I'm not saying I don't support a parks or pool district or any of this stuff, I haven't made a decision yet. I want a lot more information. I wanna know, how are you going to, where's the lazy river, where's the splash pad and all that stuff? How is that gonna get there? We've built a new police station, a new fire station, I know fire district did that, but public works station, renovated the library and all that. The city was able to do that. What is stopping us from doing that same thing with these bonds or whatever for the pool? That's just a question.
Yeah, so the assumption we're making for the aquatics, to kind of circle back to answering that question. So the survey came out with the top priorities for the pool was people want a pool that has year-round indoor use, right, for lessons and free swims and all that, or open swim. And then the recommendation based on the results, because the other top priorities were things like maybe an outdoor splash pad, like an outdoor, like sort of an outdoor feature where in the summertime it could be used. And then, maybe a warm water therapy pool that are becoming more popular because our pool is the same temperature for everything, right? So it's kind of cold for one user, but not warm enough for another type of user. So we're making the assumption that it would be a, very conservative expansion, probably a remodel as you're doing all the maintenance needs that the pool needs, more pumps and, the roof and cladding and all that stuff needs to be repaired. So as you're doing that, you can do a pretty reasonable expansion of maybe doing that warm water pool, converting that kiddie pool into a warm water pool, and maybe one of the sides can be opened up to with a glass wall, a curtain wall or something of daylight coming in. It's connected to an outdoor. That we don't have any plans for that. So we're kind of just basing off of the estimates that we currently have from OPSIS and.
So pause there.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like points have been made as if no work has been done on this except for this year, and that's just not the fact. The fact is that the campus was purchased several years ago. Previous councils embarked on a visionary process for the campus and spent a lot of taxpayer money to do outreach. Tanya, would you mind taking us through a little bit of what the OPSIS process was? Just, because I know that we weren't ready for this, so
That's okay.
nobody expects a real detailed
Yeah.
answer, but just,
Yeah.
there was community outreach as
Yeah.
part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wouldn't mind, just, yeah.
So, and I can't remember the exact timeline, but initially what occurred was that the previous city manager and myself, I forgot what other staff were involved, we sat down, had a discussion about, what we found from the Friends of the Sandy Pool and the previous surveys, what was kind of the interest. From that, we developed into hiring OPSIS after we've done, our due diligence with the council and deciding on who the contractor would be. We started with stakeholder meetings. The stakeholder meetings were probably the most successful in my opinion because we had 12 different stakeholder groups that included one with council, one with Parks Advisory Board, ones with the Friends of Sandy Pool, families with children, teams, all these different, water polo, swim teams, all the people involved in aquatics, and there were 12 of them that lasted for 2 days. Probably spent an hour to an hour and a half with each of them. And so 15 people in a room like this, having those conversations. And they got all that information, and from that, they developed some ideas on what could possibly be for the community campus. We were very clear in trying to express to them that we didn't want it to say skate park. We wanted it to say outdoor active recreation, because we heard a lot of different types of active outdoor recreation. A pump track, a this, a that. So from those plans, they developed a plan, and then we had some outreach. That was not so successful. We did not have a lot of people that attended. You know, it was not, I don't know if it wasn't publicized enough, I'm not sure. But that was very weak in my opinion. We did go to we did have several different ways. Kim and I were right here, you know, at Mountain Festival, showing everybody what we had. At that time, we talked about the public safety fee.
I don't have any, I'm real familiar with the whole process, I don't need
Yes.
to.
It's not just, it's just not
Yeah,
just.
I know, but
feedback.
I just see that we have less than 15 minutes and
Well,
have
I
a
was
few
gonna-
other questions and comments that people want to make, but sure, if that's, you know, important.
Well, just,
If you have that question, that's fine.
I think it's good
Go.
for everyone to be on the same page, so I like what you said.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we did have those public outreach, and then we had a couple at the library, and got some feedback, the feedback that we got. They again presented to council, before the current council, presented with a full team. It wasn't just, OPSIS, it was also the landscape architects. Can't think of their name at the moment, but there was about 7 of them. Walker Macy. So they presented not only the parks areas, but also the building pieces. And then that was presented. And then I think when the whole thing happened with the pool, then they came back and presented again, but only with Mark and not the full team.
So then, to Kathleen's questions on, and my question, right, I don't know it all, is, so when staff put together kind of budgets and stuff
Mhm,
on this,
mhm.
did you take into consideration some of the OPSIS recommendations and uses for the pool and some of
I
that
used
visioning?
Ken Ballard's predictions, so he had done a full market analysis, he had done programming pieces that he looked at across the nation, and that's what I added in there. I mainly looked at phase 1 of the OPSIS plan, which is basically doing the mechanical systems, HVAC, and then adding not a warm therapy pool, but more of a hot tub area, and that was an OPSIS thing versus what I wanted, because they were the intention to add that second phase, which was going to be the recreational pool. So that intention was always that it would be a phased approach, so the first pool would maintain its current configuration, maybe do some adjustments to that smaller pool, and then we would add a recreational pool, which would bring in more revenue and a different, you know, feel to the whole place.
Thank you.
So let me answer the second part of your question about how do we pay for the improvements, or how the district
Yeah, I
pays?
guess real quick, when you
Yeah.
said rec center and all, so the rec center, the 20,000 square foot thing and the bunker, I assume we're using bunker for the rec center? Or is that what these costs are?
When you're looking, so now you're
On the-
looking at
on rec
the
center.
rec center area?
Yeah, just for.
So the first line was, first year was basically, doing some small modifications to the current bunker building, kind of like what IT has done, do the ADA modifications and so forth. The second year was the hoping to build some sort of recreation center, but again, I don't know what kind of rec center. Is it gonna have a gym? Is it gonna have multi-purpose rooms? Is it gonna have a kitchen? All these questions
Okay,
need
so
to
that's
be
my question then,
answered.
is for building these things, then how does your parks or your pool district or rec center district or whatever get these really important facilities built? And can the city do that currently with their bonding abilities?
Yeah,
I guess
so-
is the real
That's
question.
an option.
Yeah, it is an option. We have $3 million in urban renewal funds currently that, from a previous bond, to purchase the Cedar Ridge property. So, right out of the gate, we can, you know, spend $3 million on the pool or the Cedar Ridge building to, you know, be able to do a multifunctional, you know, facility that has some city uses and the recreation district can be housed there. And then the urban renewal district has more bonding capacity, I think up to like 10 million more. We can issue more bonds for the project, for the whole campus and for the pool. And that would be up for the urban renewal agency to decide if that's a priority or not. But what we're assuming and why you see the jump in aquatics, and I would suggest this is a low number, is that the district itself can do revenue bonds, and we build into the budget projections that they just automatically out of the gate have debt service. So that's why it jumps to 1.2 million by the third year, is because just to renovate the pool, and you know, again, you're doing cost estimates, so you don't have any engineered drawings or anything like that, but you know, the range of cost was like 7 to 10 million for you know, the siding and roof and electrical and pumps and all that stuff. So you're looking at a, you know, 7 to 12+ million project to, you know, renovate and improve the pool, with some of the things that we're talking about, and that will need to be paid for by, you know, some kind of debt financing plus perhaps a contribution by the urban renewal agency.
I'd like to add one more thing that we haven't talked about tonight.
Please.
Just to kind of jump back to some correspondence that staff had with council prior to the pool closing, which was related to attendance and the number of users that we were experiencing over there. And I don't have the final numbers, this is just through February of 2019. But of the attendance at the pool, 63% were resident, 37% were non-resident. Of that 63% that were residents, it was something only like 8% usage of our population. So it's a very, very small percentage of the public that would be paying that fee on a utility bill if we're looking at it, you know, from that approach, subsidizing 92% of people that aren't using it at all. And I think that was one of the reasons why council started to explore this option of a recreation district, is because there's more people in our surrounding area that are using it. And then you spread that cost over a larger group, so it is smaller for everyone instead of just city residents subsidizing the aquatic facility for non-city residents.
So one of the comments that I did have the other day was just the concern about when we do a district, then that district has to go hire all these people and get vehicles and equipment and office space, and so then my concern was that the actual dollars to the park on the ground stuff would be lost because you're paying for all this overhead. The city of Sandy operates and staffs the entire Sandy and Hoodland Library District. They have school resource officers for Welch's and Boring, and they operate the transit going from Gresham to Government Camp. Some of the direct costs and the support costs of these programs are paid for by Sandy residents. And I don't believe personally that we're getting entirely reimbursed, and I know that for a fact, that we're not getting entirely reimbursed for the cost of delivering those services by Clackamas County and the school district. But given all that, what is the opportunity here? Why would we need to have even if you did have a parks or pool district or whatever it is, why wouldn't you just be able to operate it similar to how you're providing these services for more than just the city residents? Why would they have to come up with their own layer of support stuff? I get it that they could contract back with you, but that's not how all these other services, and I forgot to include the internet services
Can I
too.
try to boil down your question, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong in doing it? So is your question, why do we need to dismantle our Parks and Rec departments and put together a brand new Parks and Rec department, when what we could do is keep our Parks and Rec department and just have them contract out with them? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Well, it's
That's kind
just
of
that
what we do?
we don't make the library district hire their own HR people and their own, you know, payroll and all those other things that Tyler's department does.
Sure.
They get that done. There may be a cost or something that, you know, gets paid, but, so that's the question, is like, that's the same thing for the transit and the internet services that go outside the city and all these other things. And so, given that you have a pool district or whatever it is, why wouldn't you, that's my biggest concern, of losing a bunch of overhead money because they have to go create a whole nother layer of government.
So I'm gonna turn to staff on this. My guess is that obviously there would be some overlap, or they'd have, first of all, they'd have their own governing board. So those decisions on
Like
how
the
they would
library.
proceed would be, you know, board decisions for them. my guess is that there would be some overlap, that they perhaps would wanna utilize our public works department to do some maintenance work. They may choose to contract out with their own landscaping company to do that work. They may not want to hire an HR professional. They may instead wanna hire out, with the city and use Tyler for those services for their, I'm sure he's very excited to do that. No, but am I wrong? I guess my answer, and staff tell me if I'm wrong, is some services would probably look to contract out with the city, and some services the board may decide to take on themselves within their own governing structure.
You know, so the projections include having some administrative costs in there, and that's a number that, you know, we can dive into and try to squeeze out more that, you know, do you really need an executive director and another, you know, administrative assistant? And I think there's, you know, probably added like 50 grand in there for contracting out, you know, payroll and legal and stuff like that. So whether they pay someone, a consultant or a private firm or the city, they're gonna pay someone for those services. You better believe it, I'll charge them for Tyler's time. So those functions we're gonna, you know, need to be paid for regardless. And I think to get maybe to the point on it is, you might be able to put in some conditions into the district creation that they will contract for some of these services, but you know, that might be up to the county on whether that's acceptable to them to have something in the measure to state it that way. Because again, this is gonna be a district with its own governing board that can decide to do what they want. Maybe they don't wanna contract with us. Maybe they wanna have their own, and hire their own folks.
And then just pause real quick, because our council has a tendency to do this ourselves. We start thinking about this board as like this alternative board to us. This is a board that's comprised of community members that love Parks and Rec, right? They're all of us. There's probably people in this room that would love to serve onto that board. So let's, you know, sometimes we have found ourselves thinking of these guys as almost evil.
You brought up zoning, like representational zoning.
Yeah.
How would that map look? What would it look like? Would it be like pie shaped out from the center of Sandy, or would it be population density? Would it be municipality?
So we don't know yet, right? So that kind of goes to Don's point. So let's let Susan ask a question, then, yeah.
One little question.
Or whatever you wanna say, or a comment.
What makes, what are you being, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, but why do you think that you can get the county to do that thing you wanted to do?
Yeah.
Especially when you want it, not just when, but at all.
Yeah.
Given what we have on hand and, you know.
So we don't know, right, that we can get the county to do
You don't
that.
have any feedback?
Well,
on the
yeah,
likelihood?
yeah, that's where I would go, is I would say that, serving on C4, which is the Clackamas Coordinating Committee, so we get a lot of interaction with some of those folks. And Jan also serves on that. We also have our own kind of relationships, right, with the individuals individually that serve on the Clackamas County Commission. And so we have not, began having direct conversations on this yet, but what we are, a certain amount of an assumption that we're making is knowing those individuals, knowing what their goals are and kind of their world outlook and what they'd like to see happen in Clackamas County, that we would have a more positive experience with them than we may have had with some previous county commissions. Because of the change in outlook of some of the individuals that serve on that county commission. Let me ask this. I know the big concerns in the room are primarily around the timeline, because of us being able to get all of our facts and details and organization together as a result of that timeline. Let me just put that just to the side, and I know it's a big item to put to the side. Just let me put it to the side for a second. What is the overall feelings in this room about just progressing forward on the Parks and Rec district? And aquatics obviously being part of that.
Can I say something?
Please do,
First,
yes.
it's just that
Yeah.
I wanted to say.
Oh, I
that
apologize.
With the way that things are, as I understand it, laid out, parks themselves seem like an afterthought in financially and in every way. And I think I grew up with that pool there, I swam in that pool, it was good to have a pool and lakes and things to swim in, the pool, but the parks themselves, and you may know in terms of number of people who, like if you said, how many people are using all the parks we have for one thing or another, versus how many people, whether they're in the city or not, are using or would use a pool. You know, and I'm assuming, but I could be wrong, I mean, I know pools can get real exciting in the summertime or whenever, but it would be a much smaller number, much smaller percentage of the population, wouldn't it? Probably, but they
I don't have any
know.
statistics on
You know,
park
but,
usage.
you know, and so I don't want the parks to be
Survey.
an afterthought, and they need so much still. I mean, we've gotten to parks, and they're always suffering from a lack of things they need. And so, that concerns me.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
In response to Susan's question, I think that's exactly why there needs to be a park district, because we have kind of spent all that we can on the parks, but much more needs to be spent on the parks. So we need that new revenue to make them much better, the best they can be, rather than what they are now.
And
But it looks
attention.
like that revenue would all go to the pool. I mean, it looks like the pool would be eating up that mostly.
That
Yeah.
was one of the scenarios.
I guess that's one of my question about representation, because we wanna retain the controlling vote, right, as Sandy, yeah. And because there are parks dear to our hearts, so we wanna make sure that, what's to prevent losing the majority vote and having the money be funneled to certain other areas, like the pool, and the parks be neglected?
Once you set up the zones, they're permanent unless you had a new election. Election of all the.
I understand that, but that's why I asked how it was gonna be zoned, what that's gonna look like, because.
Well, I guess the one item I would say is that when you think about that map, that boundary map.
Yeah.
Sandy's like, we're the center of that, right?
Population density wise, yeah.
Right, and well, and it's the real growth opportunity, cause we're the
Yes.
only urbanized community within it.
Yeah.
You have Boring in there, which, but they're far from being an urbanized
Yeah.
community. You got Eagle Creek, and then you're going the other way, you're going up to Furwood and a little bit past there up to Welch's Road. When you think about that boundary, where are the growth opportunities that
Yeah.
would take from Sandy having overall say and control in that district?
No, what I'm saying is like, so say like a representative from Boring, a representative from Eagle Creek, and then, on the border of Mount Hood or whatever. If they, those, 3 or 4 of them get together and we only have 2 votes on
Yeah,
the
right.
board.
Sure.
Then they could be like, well, hey, we wanna park up in wherever, and it's.
And then they
at
start
the
trading
cost-
off with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
all political, right?
Yeah,
And then,
I hear you.
and then it starts reflecting on our parks being neglected, and, there's somewhat a loss of control there.
The other thing.
But they're
that
elected officials and their constituents that have an opportunity to voice their concerns and opinion. I mean, there's nothing, you can't control anything with any elected position. I mean, 5 years from now, this group could be totally different and reverse a decision that we've made over the last year.
Well, I guess
There's
here's the
not a
other
darn
question
thing you can do
too.
about it.
Okay, we wanna retain the controlling vote, well, how do you sell that to outer lying areas that don't have as strong of a voice? Trying to sell something to them where they don't, obviously the draw would be the pool and other attractions.
Well, but when you throw in the parks, I mean, the real issue here is that, I can live outside the city and go use the splash pad in Winstead and, I don't have to go pay, I don't have to pass a bond to do that. So all of our parks, it gets really, so your issue about, your comment about it's the timeline, it's also the scope. And if we were just talking about a pool district, I think there will, and you've already got a master plan to kind of guide that with some costs and you've got some good start for that. And I could see that going through and supporting that. I could even see adding a sports center, or sports complex of some sort, because there's a real need for ballparks. And that's another thing where everybody has, wants to use it from outside the city. It's a tourism draw, but it's something that you can kind of control. People have to pay for to use it, kind of thing. It's not like the splash pad at Winstead. But when you start throwing in all the parks and the trails, that's when, people get to use those whether they, whether they pass this or not. And so it's a little bit harder to include all that. And I would just feel more comfortable supporting something with just a pool and a sports complex type district than everything, I guess.
Sarah, Tanya, would you mind speaking up to the conversation
pools and the sports complexes are the things that cost a lot of money to operate, have real controlled use, and, yeah.
She called them regional
Destination.
complexes or the neighborhood type parks. Or necessarily. Donna, would you agree with that, or?
Not unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Or
I
even-
think the most park districts do deal with neighborhood parks.
Do deal with the neighborhood
Do,
parks?
yeah. And one of the issues that we had in Milwaukee was exactly the control issue. The other issue for it was the citizens wanting to know, gee, if I pass this bond or this ballot measure, I'm gonna be taxing myself, but I'm already paying for parks. What happens to that money that I'm paying for parks now?
Well, and that was some of the, what we got when we met with the Redmond Parks and Rec, they were like, yeah, we asked them, we said, well, what was the one thing if you had to look back that you would do over again? And they said, we'd rather make it more clear, right, because they kinda did what, they split up the parks. All right, well, we wanna keep these, we take those, and people are like, am I at a Redmond Parks and Rec District park, or am I at a City of Redmond Park? I have no idea what's going on here. So there was, they said, if we had to do it again, we'd make it very clear and do it all or
Ours
nothing.
was even more basic. It was more like, I already pay taxes to the city. Part of those taxes pay for the maintenance of North Clackamas Park. Now you're gonna form a park district, I'll pay taxes to that park district, which will now pay for the cost of maintaining North Clackamas Park. What happened to the money I was paying before?
Right.
And we were very clear that, you know, are your taxes gonna go down? No, they're not. They're gonna go into these other services. And so we were really upfront about that. And I think that, you know, that's a question that you'll have to.
Yeah, of ourselves.
Yeah.
Sure, even.
Yeah, I was actually gonna ask Don from back a few minutes ago, and I think you kinda started answering that question, was when you formed the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District there, it sounded like you were going down that path at that time because of a pool thing.
It was one of the drivers.
Was the big drivers there, and so, the question, I think you kinda started answering that just now, is, how did parks get included in that driver, or why was there just a lack of parks in general all over, or
Yeah.
how was that driver to include it, because it sounded like you were just looking at the beginning of the pool and rec, but that could've been.
The big push was around the aquatics, the most vocal part of it. The other really vocal part was the youth sports groups didn't have enough fields.
Right.
Adult softball teams didn't have enough fields. Basketball teams didn't have enough gyms. So there was also that bombarding us. But the other part of it was we had 100,000 residents. We had like 79 acres in Milwaukee, so they were all coming to us. You know, every company picnic happened at North Clackamas Park. Every family outing happened at North Clackamas. Every Easter egg hunt was at North Clackamas. So a lot of people were coming in there. And they were out in these areas that didn't have any park services, and they're going, what about us? And so there was you know, another big element was people wanting neighborhood parks. So part of our survey work was trying to discern out, you know, what were those big topics, what were those big issues? Yep, aquatics was huge and loud, but equally important were all the other ones added into it. And I'm a firm believer that that district would not have been formed if it had only been for one single item. Now, I'm not saying that that wouldn't be the case here, but in that particular community it was. Now, I know, I don't know, but I think Malala has just an aquatic district.
That mayor complains about that aquatic district.
Well, whatever. I don't know. Not involved with it. I'm just telling you, there's a model. Down in Eugene, there's a park and rec district, been there forever, River Road. They have a swimming pool, they have a community building, and they're located in a park, surrounded by Eugene. That's all they have within their park district.
And have all the other parks.
They don't have any other parks. They just have the one park, with a pool and a community center.
So you just moved to Sandy, or came?
I just moved to
You said
Sandy. I
that?
grew up in East Portland.
Yeah, so, here, you might have noticed, what may be different from Milwaukee, or the surrounding areas of Milwaukee, is we have a lot of, we call them pocket parks or other parks. Neighborhood parks throughout the entire town of that. Do you think in a community like ours now, if those were all prevalent in the area that you were describing for North Clackamas, would they have been wanting or desiring that from those areas? Cause I'm not seeing us try to create a park, say, up off of Forwood Road or something.
Yeah. Right.
could still be a demand for more and bigger. Parks are kinda like ice cream, you have a little bit, you want more. And I think also that you set a standard with Bornstead Park that you're not meeting in any other park. That's going on out there. And so I think that there's, and I live near Bornstead, I see it every day. I think my grandkids live directly across the street from it, so I'm there all the time unless I'm working someplace. But, you know, it's, I think there's a lot of neighbors saying, when's it our turn?
Oh, yeah.
You know, when's it our turn? You ever hear that? Right? Okay, well, you know, this might be their turn,
Right.
might not be their turn, but, you know, unless something changes, their turn, I can assure you, probably won't come up in the immediate or near future. And they're looking at their kids, they're watching them grow every day.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing.
It's exciting, you know.
But this bond would just be operating and maintaining parks. Building new parks would require separate bonding and all that, right?
No, not necessarily. I don't know. That's a question that you guys gotta answer and you guys gotta decide on. You've got the money to do that, get busy, but, you know, do you have any compression issues? Do you have, you know, any of those issues you're gonna have to work around out there? Do you have support from all the other taxing jurisdictions or any other fire district? Are they gonna oppose you? You know, what's going on out there with those kinds of things you're gonna have to, you know, communicate with. You know, it's gonna be a fine dance that you're trying to do. And that dance floor is about the size of the head of a pin right now. And it's not gonna get bigger.
If you can't do it, you can't make these,
Yeah, if you
these
can't get
goals,
there.
what's your plan
Yeah.
for that?
Well, one is we're gonna learn a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Well, I mean, we're gonna learn a lot, you know, it's kind of what I pose, that's where I kinda go with like, what's the worst thing that happens if we charge towards May trying to make this happen, and then we have to make a decision not to put it on the ballot?
Well, other priorities get pushed to the wayside.
Okay, so, right, but so what priorities? I mean,
That needs,
so
like,
we've
leadership.
accepted our wastewater facilities plan, we've adopted that. We're doing a green study analysis that we're contracting out, with, Murray Smith to do that, okay? We've right-sized our budget, gone through our budgeting process here in this last year, we've taken care of that. So we've shored up the budget for our police department, so we feel really good about that. You know, so I mean, when I look around to the next step, this is the focus of our council here for this, and for a big, heavy part as a result, our staff as well. And so when we get to May, and we're not able to qualify for that ballot, if we don't qualify for that ballot, well, we're sure a lot closer to qualifying for the next one, right, than we would have been if we don't make this one. And so I guess that's my point is and I think council agrees, we've had several conversations on this, we feel strongly that if we can get our stuff together, 2020, November is our best shot at victory. And then every election after that, we lose a little bit more momentum behind the pool. And so if we drive hard and we don't get this one, then maybe we get on to the next one. But we're still moving forward. We're still driving towards that end game. Don, yeah.
I don't think that's the risk that I would
Okay.
worry about.
Okay.
My risk isn't, you know, should we pull back or stop or whatever. My concern is going forward with an initiative that looks like a good plan, smells like a good plan, tastes like a good plan. Put it out there and it gets the crap beat out of it, and it fails. Does that put you back, or does that make you pull up your socks and push forward a little bit? Or even worse, what happens if it passes? And suddenly you discover, gee, we created an expectation that we can't manage. We created an expectation to get all these facilities with these results that we can't necessarily fund, or we can do these things and build these things, but we can't sustain them over time. That's what the problem is. The problem of charging forward and knowing when to say whoa before you get to that cliff, that's not the hard part. The problem is when you go over that cliff.
Right.
Is your plan gonna hold up, and will you have the capital to actually implement your plan? That's the scary part, and that's what the permanent one.
Sam?
I'll ask a question. Being new to everything here and not having any real background in this specific issue, but being involved in the general issue in the past. I guess my first question would be, is it clear what would happen if you didn't proceed with the district?
What do you mean?
Well, as far as the parks and the pool and,
Well-
could you, or would your survey be explaining to the people, if you choose this with the district or this, level or this level, but also this option of if we don't do a district, this is what we do?
Yeah, I mean, so the truth is we can't afford the pool currently, within our current budget, right? So the pool at that point is not coming back. And that's the other kind of factor on this whole thing, is, we've owned that property now for several years. We have tremendous amount of direction, whether it's a pool or ball fields and different things. I mean, I think the community's waiting for us to do something with it. They've been waiting, to Don's point, everyone kind of looking out their watch, waiting for something to happen in this community. If we don't do it this time, that property continues to sit empty for another 3 to 4 years, maybe longer. And we won't have money to reopen the pool because that's not gonna come from anywhere, so that's gonna remain vacant, and we're gonna lose $150,000 a year trying to rotate the water in the pool, because we can't just empty it.
I also don't see how we can create the master plan for the parks, but funding it is a whole different thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the other really exciting thing I feel like we'll get out of the Parks Master Plan and the timeline with this is it poses that question to our community. And to Don and Kathleen's point is we've got to do a lot more work to see how the numbers work to pay for these things. But the question I'd look to pose to the community is this: now that we've gone through the Parks Master Plan, we have all this vision put together, and we've done this planning on the aquatic center on the community campus. Do we want to phase that in over the next 30 years in grants and savings and everything like we've done? Or is it go time? I think there's a lot of folks that have moved to this community and lived here waiting for this community to become something that we're nowhere near being. And this poses a question.
Would you say that the top 5% of a growing community?
Well, we're top 5 in the state percentage-wise and fastest growing communities. We're top 5% young families.
Well, I would just add that real quick that in less than 20 years, we've gone from 3 parks to 17 parks, and Tickle Creek Trail and Sandy River Trail and all that. So I don't see us having to wait another 30 years. We've already done a huge amount between grants and SDCs and a little bit of matching and volunteers and all that. If we're not having to, I'm not saying we can use that model to build pools and sports complexes, because you can't. Those are really expensive things to both build and operate and maintain. But actual neighborhood parks and trails, I think, can be not only built but operated and maintained with the current model that we have with our city budget, and I think I would like to see.
I'm glad you said that, because I think it finally goes to the point, Kathleen, that you will never support a Parks and Rec district.
I started out here saying I haven't made a decision.
I know you said that, but I mean, the point just made is that, I mean, and it's fine. We can all have different opinions on this, but you feel strongly that we can, within our current budget and through grants and volunteers and SDCs, that we can continue on in the way that we currently are. I mean, that's an okay viewpoint to have, but let's just make sure we're being authentic and really holding true to what we believe here. I mean, are we for this effort at all? I mean, do we want to collaborate and move this effort forward, or are we really just wanting to stop it in its tracks?
As I said, I think a pool district, a sports complex district, those are real good things for a district model, because so many other people use them besides just the residents. I don't see that with the neighborhood parks.
Okay.
And the trails that we have in our neighborhood
Okay.
and all.
That's good
I
clarity.
think, that's where, and when we, we're at the meeting for the Parks Master Plan, because y'all wanna have this right away, you know, and of course, my whole outlook is, how can we all be successful? How can I support whatever it is you guys wanna do? Because it's in my best interest to support what it is you're doing, and be positive about it, okay? So that's my preference, is to figure out how can I get on board, what, you know, so, but my point is that, you know, that we all mentioned it, was that, you know, kind of separating the parks from your pool and your sports complex or something like that would also allow your parks and trails master plan to kind of go forward with its national timeline and conclusions without kind of confusing everybody. You know, we said it would otherwise be really confusing to people, and this way you could kind of say, oh, no, that process is just for this, and this process is for that, and they're for separate things. So, and like I said, I'm not saying I'm not supporting it, because I'm still gathering a lot of information about what all is being proposed and how much it costs and how does it work. That's how I work.
Carly, what?
We're well past our time, so I don't
I know,
want to
but I mean-
press on. This is the interest, right? So,
Right.
To me, contrary to what we just expressed, is that I don't see us doing anything but nickel and dime, Mickey Mouse and then bailing wire, our parks and our recreation. It seems like we have been able to move forward with those extra dozen or so parks in the last decade or so by volunteering, by squeezing, by shoving. We have some really spectacular parks, Morstead, Trickle Creek Trail, some other things that are really very nice, but how do we move forward with others? You know, as Donna's expressed it pretty clearly, I thought, was you put an expectation on one park like Morstead. Why isn't the Cascadia one that way? Why isn't some other of our parks? When's my turn? I think that's kind of the thing I'm hearing, is that without some sort of parks district, how do I get there? And maybe waiting 20, 30 years is a reasonable expectation, but when I talk to people 20 or 30 years, I don't get it. I'm thinking that people are looking to move into the community. I'm in real estate. People want to know, what are the services? What are the schools look like? What do the parks look like? What's my kids gonna do in the wintertime? They don't wanna wait 20 years. So, to me, if we don't do this and we fail, then we do the same thing we do all along. Finding a way, finding grants, finding a volunteer.
But maybe just on a bigger scale, really, I mean, because those outlying areas are gonna say the same thing. Well, we don't want a park, when we're gonna get our park? Well, after we stay in these parks, 20 or 30 years. So it's just the same thing on a bigger scale.
Would you have more money? Yes, that's what I look at. More money you have.
With a bigger area to cover.
Sure.
You do, but I also think it needs to be recognized that, I mean, we are a servicing population of around 45 to 50,000, meaning people use Sandy as their hub
Stuff
that
like
they
that.
interact
Yeah,
with,
stuff
right?
like that. That's just
Right, so I mean, so people take their families in and out of Sandy every day, you know, they would use those amenities, I think.
Tyler, what's our SDC fund right now? Isn't it like $4 million or something?
I was just gonna add it, you know, the question came up about what happens if it fails, and, you know, I would say we're in the middle of, or the beginning stages, but kind of almost in the middle of the parks plan. And I think there's some great information that's coming out of that already. There's some great outreaches happening with the TAC and the stakeholder interviews. There's gonna be, how many public meetings? 3 or 4, you know, forums. And one of the things that we built into the scope is incorporating, you know, some ideas about the community campus, and we can build off the survey that we already did about prioritizing improvements. So, in my mind, that's sort of the plan B, is we do have $3 million, and if the community is not gonna support, you know, increasing taxes for operating the pool, that we can immediately pivot to implementing the Parks Master Plan. We do have SDCs for constructing new parks, and I think that what we've kind of decided on as a city is that we're gonna focus on the Parks Master Plan before we start doing construction of new parks, and make sure we update that master plan, the capital plan, and prioritize those. So there is, you know, still opportunity, if this doesn't pan out, that we can, you know, start doing improvements. But that, again, if we don't meet the timeline, there still might be an interest in making a future ballot, so, we'll have to consider that and whether we pull triggers on things, or continue to kind of work on it towards a new goal. And I also wanted to add, the next step in this, in my mind, in terms of staff work is, we're gonna continue to work, as hard as we can in terms of refining these numbers, coming up with the, tax rates and drawing that boundary so that we have good information to go test a couple different alternatives with the voters, because I think that is the next big piece of information that's gonna help this group, help the community, help the council. Are we gonna move forward, and what are we gonna move forward with? Because one of these proposals, and everyone will have a different opinion, but when we're gonna ask someone to increase their taxes by $1.25, we better have a very good case. And I think no matter what you're asking for, even police and fire, $1.25 is a lot of money. So we may get some clear direction after, in another month if we get this poll out there, and I think it would be especially helpful if we test a couple different amounts and a different range of services, so we can narrow our focus, and that can help on the staff side narrow our focus too, so we can prepare that proposal for the county.
I think it's important, and Lori has said this, we just don't wanna underestimate our community. We gotta ask them the question, because this last time, Lori and I thought the survey results were gonna say one thing, and they came back a completely different way. So I think it's important to ask that question, get the results. So one thing I would like to ask everybody on the Parks Committee is to try to maybe commit to coming to that meeting, when we get those survey results back, and hearing those along with us. I wanna continue to have these joint, find opportunities to have these joint board meetings. This is a big initiative for our community and for our council over the next year. And to that point of groupthink, there's already a lot of points and things that were brought up here tonight that have us thinking. That's why we appreciate your service on our Parks Advisory Committee. We want individuals in our community that love this community and Parks and Rec and everything as much as we do to help us make these decisions. And we appreciate you coming tonight. We're a little over time here, and we're not gonna get all the takeaways that we wanted to. But I think the big takeaway is that we're starting the conversation and getting feedback. Please, a lot of us, when we had a really strong conversation as a council on this, I don't know, probably about a month ago. And then several of us came back with like, to really letting things absorb in, I now feel this way, or I now feel that way. So please take this information, absorb it in, think about it. But I hope we've had some spirited discussion. Just know, we all got the same goal here. We all wanna go and get into that same destination. The roads we take, the paths we take, that's where we've gotta come together as a community to figure out how we get there. So this is the beginning of that. Please stay engaged. Us as a council want you to stay engaged, and we wanna keep doing this. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You wanna recess till 8?
We'll recess until 8 o'clock. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. I didn't get to say hi, Patricia. Hi.
Hello.
Jeff, can you please call the roll?
Councilor Pietzel.
Here.
Councilor Smallwood.
Here.
Councilor Hanson. Present. Councilor Lee.
Here.
Councilor Ashton.
Here.
Councilor Schultz.
Here.
Mayor Pilley.
Here, we have a delay in Iowa, so if you see me jump out of my seat, that might be why. Okay, so quickly review the agenda for. We didn't even do the pledge. Let's stand up and do the pledge.
I was just getting ready to say something.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry about that oversight.
So with that, we have a pretty aggressive consent agenda this evening. And so I'll pause a little longer, kind of look around, see if there's any questions off of that when we get to that portion of the agenda. Then under resolutions, we will be discussing the customer assistance program that we've been preparing for our sewer service with some of the rate increases that have been kind of a hot topic over the last week. And then under new business, I hear that we have a nice young gentleman who's joining our staff as a city recorder, but the city recorder is kind of an interesting position within our city charter that it's an appointment of our council. So we're taking the next official step in his hiring process. From there, we'll have a report from the city manager, the committee and council reports, and then we will adjourn. With that, is there any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I will move to public comment. This is the portion of our meeting to address any items in front of the council or not, just maybe something you might want us to hear. You have 5 minutes, and if you decide, please state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing no public comment, I will move on to the consent agenda. Is there any questions about the material within the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I would so move.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilor Lee and a second from Councilor Schultz.
Oh, nice.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to resolutions. Jordan.
All right, so this is the resolution 2020-01, amending the master fee schedule, establish a customer assistance program rate for residential sewer service. Like, you want to do our staff report for this. I would add, this is coming at a timely time for the city. The rates, the wastewater rates went into effect, also the water rates, but the wastewater rates were the major ones that went into effect this past week. And customers have been receiving their bills. We've seen a large increase in the volume of calls as expected, and many thanks to Jamie and staff for handling those calls upstairs. I think, I don't know, are we up to 100 yet? Maybe close.
Well, it's been quieter than we thought it would be, but still.
A good amount of calls, but all in all, people are understanding of the situation the city is in and the major improvements that we're making, and a lot of them, reflected that, oh, I think I have heard of what's going on with this project. And so this leads into one of the programs that this council is interested in and that we've developed with the council's input is a customer assistance program where qualifying families and households can be eligible for a rate assistance, a discount on their wastewater portion of their utility bill. And I believe we already have a few applications that have been pulled and submitted already. So the word has gotten out in advance of formal adoption of this program. So I will turn it over to Mike to go into a little more detail.
Yeah, this is basically what you saw at the January 6th meeting, and this just kind of formalizes the direction that the council gave us at that meeting and incorporates it into a new rate into our master fee schedule for the customer assistance program. And as Jordan mentioned, it only impacts the sewer portion of the utility bill for customers. And then, I would say even based on the few applications we've seen so far, I don't think the fiscal impact will be more than what we predict. And the good thing about this, we'll have a year of this under our belt, and we'll know exactly what those numbers are gonna be when you have an opportunity. We anticipate that the income threshold will change annually as the federal government updates their statistics. And then, the rates will change annually too. So this customer assistance program will, the rate should change at the same as the utility rates do annually in the future. So anyway, this is just based on the council direction. The guideline, rather than the dollar amount, we're just using 185% of the Health and Human Service guideline number, and that will change annually. And then the council direction was to provide a 50% discount for the single-family residential rates,
And those are shown in the table on section 8, and that would, the adoption of this ordinance would amend the master fee resolution, or the master fee schedule, and also formalize the direction about the bills that have already gone out. People apply before March 5th, 2020. They could get a retroactive credit against their bill. March 5th would be, bills that just went out, bills would be due on the payment would be due on March 5th. So as long as people get their application in and get it vetted and approved before then, they're eligible for a retroactive credit on the bill that's currently out there.
Chris, yep. Counselor
You had your hand up first.
Okay.
Yeah, so Mike, just a question, I had somebody asking me this, I didn't know the answer to, but I do know we talked about it. If you're in an MDU and your rent goes up, you're not directly responsible for your water, sewer, gas, and your rent goes up, but you do fall within the income threshold. It isn't a discount that's applicable to a situation like that, as they're not paying the water, sewer, gas, but it's more of a pass-through.
Right, the programs we looked at from the other cities, I think we looked at Troutdale, Oregon City, and Canby. Those were all for customers only, not for, in fact, the only program we saw in the metro area for tenants was in Portland. And, but again, when we had the workshop in January, we did discuss the fact that the council may want to revisit these when we do have cases like that pop up. And so I would suggest we come back maybe after 90 days and review this. I did have a owner of a 16-unit multifamily complex, and I was amazed when he told me what the rents he charged was way below market, and he was concerned. He didn't want to absorb the rate increase, and he was uncertain whether his customers would be able, even though it wasn't a significant amount, it was like $12-15 a month. Once you divide it up amongst tenants, he just thought that might be a burden to him. So I said, come to the council or just send your concerns to the council. They're always able to review this at any point in the future. So I would recommend we come back in maybe 90 days, and we might have a little collection of peculiar or unique things that popped up that we didn't anticipate when we developed this.
I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you help me remember on you have a section 8 sewer rates there, existing program, new charge. What was the charge for the base fee prior to us raising it, and what was the volume per 100 cubic feet prior to that? I was just wondering if this went lower than what it was existing.
Actually, the base fee prior to the rate change was $9.82. So this gets it down to about 49 cents higher than it was before. And then the volume charge was $2.52. And so this gets it down to within 13 cents of what the one charge was before.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Exner.
Yeah, Mike, you may not have experienced this already, but the complexity of this is relatively simple, I think, and it doesn't seem like there'd be a lot of time to evaluate the person's approval of this. Are we thinking a few days? Are we thinking we're talking it's going to take several weeks? Even if we only, you said there was a half dozen or so people that applied.
Tyler's been doing most of them, so.
How quickly are we talking about? Is it going to take a while? Wait till the last second, like some people do, and they miss their deadline, or is it?
If we get the documentation that is required at the time they apply, it's gonna be very straightforward. That's the problem, though, is getting the appropriate documentation. People will mark that they have, 5 people living in the house, or 2 people living in the house, but only submit income verification documentation for 1 person. So we're gonna have to go back out and confirm, are you the only person that's working in this household? Do other people have social security income, pension income, W-2 information? And so, if we can get information that meets all the requirements, Jamie's bringing those in. I'll be the one that makes the final determination whether they are approved or denied, so that there's kind of a separation between who's processing the billing and who's actually making those approvals. And if we can get those in, they'll be turned around in a matter of a day or 2, depending on what other workload I have on my desk. So relatively quickly for a
To me, if you got a building that has 3 families in it and they're all bringing in income, how do we know if they decide not to tell you about one of them or something and you only see 2? Or do we do a lot of investigation? Do we watch them for 2 weeks and see if there's more than one family in or not? How did that work?
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna be doing drive-bys to evaluate.
I didn't think so,
But, you know, with the documentation that is submitted, if your tax return says that there's, 4 people living in the house and you only have one person's information that's, submitted, in addition to that, it's gonna be case by case, but we'll just have to evaluate those as they come in. We don't have a mechanism in place currently to prevent anyone from lying on it, other than we need to have, income documentation for each of those people that we believe live in the house.
I want to believe people are going to be relatively honest, but I'm sure there's someone out there that will try to game the system, as they say. I'm just wondering if I'm working in it and I'm part of this family complex and I've got a mother that's receiving Social Security, you'll be looking for that Social Security amount and then my income and those together, okay?
If your mother-in-law or one of your children live with you, we'd be needing your information, your wife's information, the other income earner in the household, so.
Okay.
And that's where, at least to date, that's where the confusion's been. Why do I need to submit my, adult child's income that lives at home with me when they're not the one who pays the bill? If they're a member of your household, their income is factored into this scenario.
Everybody feel good with where we're at?
What is considered an adult child? My 12-year-old son is not an adult.
I
He's not out for
believe
a job, but at some point he's gonna get a job and
So
he
I
won't be
believe
an adult.
The application says any wage earner,
Any
correct?
income earner, yeah.
So if you're 15 and have a job and get a W-2, you're technically a wage earner for your household.
But there's no way for the city to verify that, so.
The form and the
That's fine.
eligibility criteria are on the city's website, so it's not a complex thing. We try to make it pretty simple. And, they do sign some statement saying that, everything is true to the best of their knowledge. So, we're not really, we don't have the resources to go double check this stuff, but it's an honor system thing.
My wife considers me a grown child, does that count? Anyone else? Are we good? A motion?
Yeah.
I'll move to approve resolution 2020-01, amending the master fees and charges schedule.
There's a motion. I have a motion from Counselor Schultz, a second by Counselor Exner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'm proud of this, guys. Thank you. Good job. I would love to hear 90 days from now. That'd be a good
Yes.
follow-up. I like
Agreed.
that. With that, moving on to new business. Very serious one we have here, you guys. Need your attention. Yes. Jordan, you want to introduce Jeff to the group?
I've introduced Jeff Aprati already a few times, but here he is.
Objection.
And if you have a problem with the amount of items on the consent agenda, you can blame Jeff.
Whoa.
He's just so quick. Let me finish. He's just so quick with minutes out of the
You just got
gate.
hit with the
I'm so
bus
thorough
or
is
the
what he
troll.
did.
He's so quick with minutes that he already had them ready, and he actually had the idea, a good idea, that because of your conversation tonight with the Parks Board, that'd be a good idea to have those minutes ready for them to review from your goal setting, your meeting last week.
Thank
So
you.
he's
Thank
scrambled
you.
and pulled them
Awesome.
together. So many thanks to Jeff. As the mayor mentioned, the charter requires the council to consent to the appointment of a city recorder, and Jeff was hired starting just a few weeks ago to be the city recorder / management analyst. So we'd like to have him designated as your official city recorder for the city of Sandy.
All right.
I do believe I saw smoke coming off the keyboard earlier, so
Ooh.
excellent job so far. Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the,
Jeff Apparati to the appointment of city recorder.
what he said.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Counselor Hamlin to appoint Jeff Apparati as our next city recorder here in the city of Sandy, provided the city of Sandy charter. Second by Council President Peetzold. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very
Congratulations,
much.
Jeff. Happy to have you.
And the honeymoon time ends tonight.
There you go. That's right. Jordan, you're up with your report.
I'm really sorry to do this. I have a modification or a request on a previous item. On the consent agenda was the approval of the DEQ loan amendment.
Sure.
So this was already the second time that we put this in front of you. They need actually a standalone, motion from the council
Is that
and
within this
vote.
hot link here?
It would just be moved to authorize the city manager to sign the amendment to the existing loan agreement and set aside funds in the sewer bond reserve.
I'd like to make a motion to move to authorize the city manager to sign the amendment to the existing loan agreement and set aside funds in the sewer bond reserve fund annually in the amount of $91,000 as a reserve for the loan.
I second that.
It's been a motion by Councilor Hamlin, a second by Council President Petzold. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We do it right?
Yes, thank you, sorry.
Appreciate
We,
that.
we had put it on
Until next
consent already,
time.
they said, no, we actually need something more official, like a resolution or a vote.
Okay.
Okay, we could do that, and then we put it on consent again, so,
Okay.
yeah, that's
That's
my
good.
mistake, sorry about that. Just really briefly, I mentioned the wastewater rates going into effect, and, so I don't wanna spend any more time on that, but except for to thank staff for, working through that and getting information out about that. But really happy with the way that we kind of rallied and been prepared to address those questions. The transit anniversary, 20-year anniversary of the transit, San Diego Area Transit is coming up, or San Diego Area Metro, sorry, is coming up on Saturday, February 15th from 10 to noon at the Operations Center here in Sandy. And we will have new buses being to steal the show. They're on their way, and they're looking great. And then
Who are we
just
inviting to that?
who are
Do
we?
we have like an
inviting?
invitation going out to our congressional delegation, our county commissioners?
I can check on that. Let's see who they're inviting out. I know the Transit Advisory Board and other folks have been on the kind of transit list with the master plan and all that. But
Also in our community, it's a really big event for folks like Scott Lazenby, Linda Malone, our transit director of the time, who's still very involved. Anyways, folks that were involved in the conception of that, back when it started, I'd love to make sure that they have invitations in their hand for that event.
And on 362nd, the proposals are due back Thursday. So we are anxiously awaiting for the proposals from firms that will provide design, engineering, and right-of-way services to begin work on the 362nd and Bell Street extension. So I know the mayor wanted updates.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Bi-weekly on
Appreciate
that,
it.
of course. So for your agenda on February 18th, our goal is to come back to the council and have a few more little questions regarding the district proposal, but what we'll do is have a starting point with some assumptions that I kind of previewed, but have some alternatives in front of you to basically give us direction, taking the next steps into that polling. And then it looks like, if possible, say everything goes well on the 18th and we have a couple alternatives, we can meet that week, say the following day or the day after, with the polling firm, with the council work group. So I'll be checking on availability for that meeting with the council group.
Okay. I think we'd like to include Don from our Parks Committee on that as well.
Yes. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Committee and council reports, Councilor Schultz.
Yeah, we had, the library task force started, the end of January, in Oregon City. The first meeting was sort of a information session to get everybody on the same page. I was impressed with how well it was attended, especially by Sandyites. We had staff, myself, and a bunch of our library board members, so that was really nice to see. So that will continue over the next 18 months, with the various subcommittees and with a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The other thing I've been part of lately is this ongoing childcare discussion. We had our second convening last week at the community center. Lots of community partners came. It was probably about twice the size group as what we had at the first one, maybe. And really good conversation between staff, people from the county, people from the city, just as we're sort of exploring this issue and seeing what we can do with it. Representative Williams was in attendance. She continues to be a great partner for us and very involved in things that we're interested in. So that was great to have her presence. And our staff is going to continue to work with us and community partners on this issue as we try to pull together some ideas.
Awesome. Thank you for your leadership there.
Yes.
Councilor Exer.
Yeah, a couple of items. I'm interested in when the Art Commission appointment, approval, selection process will occur. I understand we have at least one of the applicants is gonna be out until March or so, and so there may be some time constraints.
Yeah.
If we do it right away, like in February, I think we're gonna not have that person available to be interviewed, and so it may be something we wanna touch base with. Linda Malone's gonna be out for a couple of weeks, so there was a concern about when that's gonna happen, so that we have all that currently coordinated and so on. So if we could do that, maybe connect with them as time goes by. Another thing that I saw, I got an email from Portland Water Bureau, I think it was yesterday, that was really very informative. It had pictures of some of the things that they were currently working on with the infiltration project. And I don't want to get off on that, but it really looked like a strong effort to get the word out to people like myself who've said, I'm interested in what's going on there. And I wonder if we can apply some of that to our situation. We have so many things happening at this point. All the different plans going out, all the different events. We do have information. I see them on our Facebook. I see them in the emails that go out. But this particular email that was put out by Portland Water Bureau, I guess they got a lot of money. They could use that as a way to make that happen slick. But there were pictures. There was results of meetings. There was just a real nice, informative email that went out. It looks like it's going to happen on a monthly basis. I'm wondering if we could do something of that similarly to get out some of the things that we're doing right now. There's so many items that are rolling up and moving forward on, and getting that word out and very positive look to it. And I'm kind of hoping that maybe we could do something like that. Maybe our new recorder could be involved in some of that. I told you that our honeymoon is over right away, so.
Well, to that point, if I may add on to it.
Sure.
You know, I think a major lift we're gonna have coming out of our meeting today, and I was thinking about this before, is you know, wastewater, with this wastewater and the rates and the significant budgetary challenges that we have a real hard communication problem in front of us on why we have the latitude to dream big in some ways, while we're stretched thin in others. And just to your point, Counselor, it's just the communication strategy behind that and how we put that out there and explain. Some budgets are stronger than others, and a lot of those have straight, you know, you can't touch versus you can, and what you can use them for. It's going to be a significant challenge that we really need to think through.
Yeah, I would surely like to see us think about those things and put that out there. We haven't done as spectacular a job as maybe we should have in the past, and consequences are that the word doesn't get out like it should. And I think it's just really important that we focus on getting that information, that message out. So if we could look at that, and I'm sure some of you else have already received some of that. So maybe you can take a look at that. Just as a notice coming up, the mural on the outside of the City Hall here that's been taken down now for the bulk of the winter is getting very close to being rehabilitated by the Art Commission and a couple of the folks that have been there and some volunteers. And we'll be headed towards being applied to the outside again. And I'm really hopeful that that will happen. Maybe we could do some kind of celebration and a recognition of the folks, the volunteers that put that together.
Something bigger than we did last time.
Yeah.
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 I'm
But
with you.
it's so close here, I thought maybe we could try something, maybe at the beginning or the end of a council meeting or something, and bring in the volunteers. There's been, to my count, upwards of a dozen different volunteers working on that. And now I understand it's getting close to being finalized, and so sometime soon, hopefully that would be really a positive thing. Good news. and very inexpensive, I might add.
And a cool thing to be a part of though, too.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Yeah.
really for like someone who's
Yeah.
into the arts and likes painting, to be a part of that for the long history of the city. It's a
Yeah.
really cool opportunity for them.
Okay, and that's it.
Well, I was very impressed with the new newsletter from the library, so if you had a hand in that, I congratulate you. Usually when I look at the newsletter for the library, it's a little squishy thing and you have to go to the website to be able to read it. But this new one is visible, you can read it, great pictures, well done. The other thing is I'm the liaison for transit, so I hope you will all turn up on the 15th. We have some commemorative blankets. And I was going to talk with the county commissioners about getting them to attend, as well as you're sending them a written invitation. I'll make a couple calls and see if we can get some.
I just don't wanna undercut what a big moment this is for our
Yeah.
community. I mean, this was a
Right.
big deal,
Yeah.
what happened here with
Yeah.
transit and how successful it's
Oh, yeah.
been.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, this is
Exciting.
exciting, sorry.
Having a fleet of 20.
Yes.
I also attended the child care event, and I wanted to say that Bethany did a great job of giving an overview, those of you who might have seen it. And David and Kelly were very supportive in helping us out. So that's it.
You had that awesome idea too about the Bornstedt house.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We're still working
I
on it.
know, I was telling the kids, he
I
was like,
think
and
you
then
should-
Jeremy had a really good one.
Yeah,
and
I think you should
showing me.
continue working on it.
I
think
do
it's
too.
a very good
Right.
idea.
I do
Right.
too, yeah.
Nothing to report, make a motion to move on to Counselor Smallwood. I second my motion. You're up.
You're up.
So as you guys, I think were probably informed tonight at our work session, the TAC meeting for the parks was last Thursday night. So they just kind of divulged some of the information that they got from some of their stakeholders. They talked to 12 different organizations, including, some of the biking areas, some people that are interested in outdoor recreation, and various other individual groups, as it would be. Came back really looking really similar to what we saw really with our survey, as far as like some of the things that people would like to see. There were some, big gets, like indoor water parks and things like that, but hey, when you're shooting for the moon, why not, right? So, their next meeting will be on February 27th for the community outreach. I'm working that night, so I won't be able to be there, but I don't think didn't sound like it was that important. It's really set up for people to come in and give their input, so if any of you have any interest in that, please feel free to stop in. Also, some of you met Sam tonight. We approved him being on the board, so he's gonna be a great addition. If you didn't get an opportunity to read his resume, he is retired, was an instructor at the University of Utah on recreation and tourism. He's worked for the U.S. Forest Service. His wife is here working for the U.S. Forest Service right now, so he's into pickleball. That's a common theme that we're all hearing. And he's already done some work with the Oregon Trail School District to try and find some places that they can use some courts. So he's hit the ground running a little bit, which is exciting.
So does that leave only one empty position now?
I believe so, yes.
Oh, good.
And I think it's great. We've really here in our last 3 individuals that have wanted to get on the Parks Board just really have some interesting resumes and some professional experience that I think is really exciting. So, and then just would like to thank staff. I know that they've been working really hard for the last couple weeks between the increase rates and then now with all the park stuff, and it's a big push and it is appreciated. So thank you very much. That's all I got.
Yeah, I wanna thank staff too. I'm tired, so you guys must be really tired.
Yeah.
I think please thank the staff from us, at least, I know I probably speak for everyone there, for the ones that aren't here tonight that, are doing all the work to make Jordan look great, so. Jordan's doing a lot of the work too, but, no, it doesn't go unnoticed, and there's a lot of work that goes behind every comment that we make. Speaking of that, I'll do my comments now. OBAC, I went to the OBAC meeting here this last month. one of the things that came out of that, right off the bat was, another member is a county commissioner from Tillamook. He represents I represent cities across the state of Oregon, and he represents counties across Oregon. He wasn't at that meeting. He called in from his cell phone and apologized because that morning they had just got ransomware, and the whole county went down. Couldn't talk a lot about it because of insurance, and Stan might know about a little bit about insurance and.
So knock it off.
So, for a ways, but they got everything, and it will take them. In fact, we just got an email from them yesterday, and that's been a couple weeks now that they've just been trying to dig out of that just to get their emails back, just to get their phones back, just to get their website back, just to get the paying system. They didn't know how they were going to pay, and that type of thing. And I do have my background is with part of that, but I think that we do need to make that a priority of our city. There was, if you look across the nation here, we're getting attacked, and we're getting attacked more heavily now after November timeframe, but really after January starting up. And part of it is because, the future year of the election, but with ransomware. Texas had like 17 cities all in the same day get ransomware, where they crypto locked all their servers. So, we are a soft target. Government agencies are, and so we need to be wise about that and have a plan put together. Part of our CERT plan we do for cities for natural disasters should implement that, and so we go through processes where I work for making sure that happens and then get implemented just like you would have for a natural disaster. So, anyways. That being said, I will be chairing the next OBAC meeting in February in Salem. If you want to attend, they're riveting. I enjoy them. And we'll be starting off the new plan for the year. This is a reporting year to the legislation, and so one of our pieces in the charter is to represent that to the legislation for the broadband communication across the state for that. We had our economic development meeting, the first one here this last month. I don't know if I reported that before, but it was a great kickoff. I want to bring that up to say our second one, where we'll start getting into more things, is this Wednesday at 6:30. And then all I have is I'm really interested to hear Stan and his report on the mayor's, national mayors.
Yes. So I'll start off with that. So last week, or maybe it was the week before, I don't know, man. It's all coming together these days. But I was at the U.S. Mayor's Conference in D.C. Had some really encouraging meetings there. Was able to get about 30 minutes with Senator Merkley and his staff to talk about wastewater as well as our bypass. Those were kind of the two projects I focused in on, because those are the two projects I'm hoping to get the most federal assistance on. He provided, his staff provided, which then I sent out to everybody, is this water financing kind of booklet with hot links to different things on there. They were able to have a fellow from the EPA that was in their office, and that was kind of her big project while she was there. She also assisted us on a conference call with staff when we were talking to WIFIA and when we didn't get it, and some of the gameplay for how we could apply better next time. One of the things that came up with both that meeting and Senator Wyden's meeting as well is on the bypass is the opportunity to maybe talk about resiliency with that. When you talk about climate change and the leading of some of the forest fires and stuff that happen up the mountain, as well as the possible Cascadia quake and Hoodlin Station acting as kind of the east side supplier of that. How do we get the people and the supplies and those kind of emergency situations off the mountain? And there's a lot of federal funds and assistance going in that regard. So that could be, not that that's the all-in be-all of our bypass project, but it is an interesting avenue that we can go down on that. As far as wastewater goes, a lot of it is reapplying for our WIFIA. They're going to put us in contact on a staff level, some folks that can help us walk through that process and really advocate for that and try to get it through. One thing our staff asked me to bring up to the center when there was kind of baby WIFIA. A lot of the times we're in the same pile as Portland and LA and Seattle and these larger communities, and the ability for a smaller community like ours to really be able to stand out. And Senator Merkley was the one that kind of spearheaded WIFIA on a national level. So that's kind of an important person to be communicating that to, for us. Interesting thing about Wyden is, I didn't get as much time with him as I do with Senator Merkley, but he recognized me as the bypass guy. So, as long as he hears Sandy and thinks traffic when I drive through and bypass, that's really all you can take away from that. So, the other item was Tigard is in the middle of applying for a police grant. And I had some conversations with that mayor, and he was talking about really the hard part about getting some of those is the person giving you the grant wants to know that you have the ability to sustain it afterwards, right? And I was thinking, man, we're just in this key spot because of our public safety fee. We could legitimately make the case that we have taken some strong leadership steps to be able to implement, the continuing of the officers. I reached out to Sean Lendery. He notified me that him and the chief were successful just a couple of years ago in obtaining one of these grants. So that's great. I mean, they're already thinking and going after that stuff. I was really encouraged by that. But might be something you want to see. How easy was that to obtain? Was it a pain after we got it? Is it something worth going after again? But it was kind of a takeaway from that. So, really good conference. Was able to advocate a lot on the staff level and got to watch the impeachment trial a little bit, which was a pretty historic moment. I did fall asleep a little bit. Mackenzie had to wake me up, but that's fine. On to the Hoodland Park situation. I mentioned earlier that conversation. That was great, but a takeaway from that is Marcy and the Hoodland Parks Board would like to come to a council meeting and update us on their plans. I think that'd be great.
Yep.
All the lines of communication that we can have open, right, and to collaborate, we should be looking for those opportunities, so I extended that invitation. I already mentioned the water rates and the Parks District and how we got to talk about all that. Just wanted to reiterate a thank you to staff. This has been a hard week. And I mentioned it the last time we got together, a lot of times they have the consequences of our decisions a lot of the time. And we really appreciate all the efforts, not just taking the calls, but preparing for all the parks and rec stuff going on right now, wastewater. It's just been incredible. And to your point on communication, COIN, Jordan mentioned in our week update that COIN reached out. And they're like, what's going on? We're hearing these complaints. What kind of communication have you put out? And his reply just made me really proud of us as a community, because his reply was, it's like, here's like 1,000 articles that were in the Sandy Post. Here's a bunch of editorials. Here's what we did on social media. Here's what we did with the bill. I don't know if any of you have gone to our website on your phone, but there's a red scroll across it that says, we ain't hiding anything. Here it is. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud that, we have a major issue that's been in front of us, and we've done everything we possibly can to get that word out and to communicate with our community. So that's staff, right? So thank you guys. Lots of hard work. We really appreciate that. Tyler, I keep thinking about that first meeting that you prepared for me where we went through the budget. We're gonna right-size that budget, man. We're almost there. We're getting there. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you, guys. I'll go ahead and close the meeting.
Oh, really? I know. I was like,
Be careful
I
when
linked
you're
all your
leaving, the
articles. I was like,
sidewalks and roads are just a little slick.
And then she's
Yes,
like,
they
that's what I
are.
figured. Thank you.
If you didn't hear me, sorry when you fall.
Just had to double check to make sure. I was like, I know. I'm telling you.
Preferably.
That's what she said. She said she's supportive if it gets started.
Yes.
So, and I was just like, okay.
How close to Terry that
We just took the job.
Yeah. I totally understand that was super cool.
Yeah, you got your agenda.
It sounds like she was just kind of trying to
People had so many illnesses.
Yes. Yeah.